My cane disappeared 11 minutes before my mother asked me to carry a 26-pound photo album down a staircase. It didn't grow legs, I said. Celeste stood at the kitchen island cutting rosemary with a knife too large for rosemary. Maybe you moved it. I left it hooked over the mudroom bench. Mom opened the oven, looked inside, and closed it without doing anything. Then it's probably in the mudroom. It isn't. Well, Mara, I don't know what you want us to say. I wanted one of them to say, Celeste put it behind Dad's workbench in the garage. I didn't know that yet. What I knew was that my right foot had started buzzing, the electrical warning I got before the muscles in my leg became unreliable, and both women were watching me as if I were a difficult appliance. Celeste set down the knife. Your therapist wants you to use the leg. My therapist wants me to use the leg with support. There's a handrail. Mom gave me a tired smile. Think of it as tough love. Above the mudroom door, something blinked blue. Dad's old security camera, the one Mom believed had been dead for 3 years. I looked at the camera, then at my mother. She had already turned away. The night before, Mom called me 4 times between 6:12 and 6:28. The first call was to ask where I was. The second was to ask whether I had remembered the pearl onions. The third was to tell me not to buy pearl onions because Celeste thought they looked depressing. On the fourth call, Mom wanted to know whether I had remembered the pearl onions. I'm in your driveway, I said. Oh. I thought I heard a car. You're standing in the front window looking at me. The curtain shifted. I was checking the weather. It's dark. You can still have weather in the dark, Mara. That was my mother, defensible on a technicality until the end. I shut off the engine and sat for a moment with both hands on the wheel. Dad's house looked smaller since he died, not physically. Physically, it remained an overconfident 2-story colonial with black shutters and a porch Dad had rebuilt twice because the first rebuild didn't sit right. But without him in the front room, the place seemed to have exhaled and never filled back up. There were candles glowing in the downstairs windows, electric ones, because Mom loved atmosphere but distrusted flame. Dad used to say she wanted all the benefits of danger with none of the danger. My right leg had stiffened during the drive. I opened the door, planted the rubber tip of my cane on the pavement, and waited for the cold to move through my spine. There was a particular indignity in having to negotiate with your own body before unloading groceries. Mine usually opened with a ridiculous offer, and we worked down from there. Mom came onto the porch wearing Dad's old green cardigan over her nightgown. Don't lift the heavy box, she called. I won't. The album's in there. I know. And the roast. I packed it. And that tape machine. Reel-to-reel player, that's what I said. She watched while I carried the heavy box. Inside, the house smelled like lemon polish and the cinnamon brooms Mom bought every fall, even though she claimed scented things gave her headaches. Dad's slippers were still under the radiator by the front door. She had moved his coats, his hats, his keys, and every bottle from the medicine cabinet. But the slippers stayed. Their toes pointed toward the hallway as if he had stepped out of them and planned to be back before the floor got cold. Mom reached for the grocery bag containing a loaf of bread and 3 bags of marshmallows. I can take something. I've got it. You never let me help? You're holding the bread. She looked down, offended by the evidence. I made 3 trips to the car. On the second, she warned me about the slick porch. On the third, she asked why I was walking so slowly. The dining room table was covered with the archaeology of Dad's life. Envelopes of photographs, his union pin, a cracked pipe he had stopped smoking when I was 12 but refused to throw away because it was seasoned, a coffee mug that said, "World's okayest father," which Celeste had given him as a joke. Dad drank from it for 15 years and pretended not to understand why it was funny. Mom had arranged all of it around a blank space in the middle. What goes there? I asked. The blue album. I thought you wanted it upstairs until tomorrow. I changed my mind. Of course you did. What does that mean? It means you remain capable of change. She narrowed her eyes, then laughed despite herself. For half a second, we were ourselves, not the careful version we had become after Dad got sick, or the brittle version after he died. Just Mom and me in a room, bumping elbows around the same old joke. Then she saw my cane leaning against a chair. "Are you worse today?" There it was. Not "how are you feeling?" Not "does it hurt?" Worse was a status category, like weather damage. Long drive. It's 40 minutes. 43 if you obey laws. Your father could do it in 35. Dad treated yellow lights as personal challenges. Mom touched the edge of the table. He loved driving. Dad loved winning at driving. There was a difference, but I let her keep it. I unpacked the repaired reel-to-reel player on the sideboard. It was a heavy silver-faced machine from the 70s with knobs that clicked satisfyingly into place. Dad had recorded everything when he first bought it. Thunderstorms, football games, Celeste singing into a hairbrush, me at 6 explaining why worms came out in the rain. During his last year, he had asked me to bring it downstairs. We spent quiet afternoons labeling old tapes while his oxygen concentrator sighed in the corner. After he died, Mom wanted the machine working for the first anniversary. Then she said it was too upsetting. This year, she wanted one of his recordings playing at 6:20. "I thought we could use the Christmas tape," she said. "The one where Celeste bites me? You were fighting over a doll. It was my doll. You never cared about dolls. I cared about ownership." Mom smiled toward the hallway, where memory had apparently staged a softer childhood than the one we lived through. "You two were inseparable." Celeste once told me she would give me a quarter if I put my tongue on a 9-volt battery. When I did, she kept the quarter because, according to her, I had already received an experience. "Inseparable," I said. The back door opened without a knock. "Please tell me that smell is dinner," Celeste called. She came in carrying garment bags and a circular light on a tripod, her cheeks pink from the cold. At 42, my sister had the kind of face people called open. Wide brown eyes, quick smile, a tiny line between her eyebrows that appeared whenever someone else talked too long. She wore cream trousers to transport equipment through a damp yard and somehow did not get mud on them. I could wear black to a funeral and attract powdered sugar. Mom brightened in a way she never quite managed for me. "You made it." Barely. The highway was a nightmare. "It was clear when I came through," I said. Celeste kissed the air beside my cheek. "You got lucky." She set the garment bags across 3 dining chairs and turned slowly toward the table. "Oh," she said. Mom's shoulders rose. "What? It's just a lot. You said you wanted personal things." "I do." "Personal, not—" Celeste gestured at Dad's pipe. "Estate sale." Mom immediately picked up the pipe. I watched her carry it to the china cabinet and put it inside, behind the gravy boat. Celeste unfolded the tripod. I was thinking we record everyone's memory individually. The den has better depth, but we'll need to move Dad's chair. "We're not moving his chair," Mom said. "It's 3 feet. He liked it by the window. He isn't sitting in it, Mom." The sentence landed hard enough that even Celeste heard it. She stopped adjusting the light. "I meant for the picture." Mom ran her thumb along the cuff of Dad's cardigan. "I know what you meant." Celeste looked at me. That was part of my job, too. Translator, shock absorber, person who said what each woman should have said herself. I removed the plastic from the roast instead. "What can I do?" Celeste asked after a moment. Mom's face softened at once. "Nothing tonight. You drove all this way. 40 minutes had become the Oregon Trail. You could peel carrots," I said. Celeste looked at her nails. They were the pale pink of expensive restraint. "I can set up first?" "Of course." She followed me into the kitchen while Mom rearranged the table. "You're in a mood," she said quietly. "I'm holding a raw roast. That's not an answer. It's a context." She leaned against the counter and studied the list taped to the cabinet. My list. Shopping, cooking times, guest confirmations, tape numbers, extension cords. Celeste traced one finger down it without touching. "Mom said you were being weird about tomorrow. Mom thinks punctuation can be hostile. She said you don't want it recorded. I said Aunt Laura might not want to describe her dead brother under a ring light. It's for us, Mara, not social media. I didn't say social media. Her eyebrow line appeared. I slid the roast into the refrigerator. You brought 3 outfits. They're options. For grief, for the camera. The back door was still cracked open. Cold air skimmed across the tile and curled around my ankle, making the nerve in my leg twitch. I crossed the kitchen and pulled it shut. Celeste's eyes dropped to my cane. That one's new. No, you saw it at Thanksgiving. I don't remember it being so substantial. It was walnut then, too. Could you use the black one tomorrow? I turned. Why? The walnut catches the light. For one wonderful second, I thought she was joking. Then she looked toward the ring light. No, I said. It was just a question. It was an odd question. You don't have to bite my head off. I need my head for the carrots. Mom entered carrying Dad's pipe in one hand. What are you two doing? Nothing, Celeste said. Mara. The old reflex. Ask Celeste, then inspect me for the trouble. Discussing wood tones. Mom looked from the cane to the cabinets. I never liked that stain. Celeste laughed, and because the laugh was easier than the room, I did too. Later, after Mom went upstairs, Celeste helped me label place cards. Her handwriting was beautiful. She remembered Aunt Laura's new last name when I didn't, and she quietly removed Cousin Andrew from the list because he had stopped speaking to Dad before he died and would only upset Mom. This was why I could never flatten my sister into one clean shape. Celeste could notice the bruise in a room. She just preferred bruises that didn't ask anything of her. At midnight, we stood in the mudroom among grocery bags and boxes. You should go to bed, she said. So should you. I mean, because of your leg. I know what you meant. She reached for my elbow as I stepped over a box. Her grip was quick and firm, helpful before I could refuse it. Then she let go and said, You rely on that thing too much. I hooked the cane over the bench. And you rely on saying things like that instead of good night. She smiled, but not all the way. Good night, Mara. In the morning, the cane was gone. At first, I assumed I had knocked it down during one of my late-night trips through the mudroom. The floor was crowded with reusable bags, 2 cases of seltzer, Dad's old rubber boots, and a box Mom had labeled fall decor, even though it contained 1 plastic pumpkin and 6 extension cords. I moved everything I could reach without bending too far. No cane. I checked behind the bench, under Dad's raincoat beside the dryer, and in the half bath where no one in our family had ever voluntarily put anything away. I even opened the hall closet, though I could see the entire route I had taken after hooking the cane over the bench. Mom found me braced against the washing machine. Why are you on the floor? I'm not on the floor. You're practically on the floor. I'm looking for my cane. Her gaze flicked to the empty hook of the bench. It was quick. Half a second, maybe less. But my mother was not a quick person before coffee. She usually looked at each object as if waiting for it to introduce itself. Did Celeste borrow it? She asked. For what? I don't know. Reaching something? It isn't a shepherd's crook. Mom stepped around me and lifted Dad's raincoat. Well, it has to be somewhere. Celeste came in dressed for the version of morning that had flattering natural light. Her charcoal sweater fell softly off one shoulder, and she had twisted her hair into a loose knot that probably required 20 minutes and 9 pins. What has to be somewhere? My cane. She paused at the coffee maker. Didn't you leave it by the stairs? No. The kitchen? No. Maybe you moved it. By then I could hear the performance in both of them, not necessarily the shape of it, but the effort. They were bad actresses in different ways. Celeste added too much casual detail. Mom behaved like Truth was a door-to-door salesman she could avoid by staying quiet. I pushed myself upright using the edge of the washer. A streak of heat ran from my hip to my calf. Did either of you touch it? No, Celeste said. Mom folded Dad's raincoat over her arm. Why would we? That was not the same answer. The oven timer began beeping in the kitchen. I had set it to remind myself to start the roast because Mom wanted dinner served at 5:30, leaving everyone enough time to eat before we gathered in the den at 6:20. Dad had died at 6:20 on a wet Thursday evening while a game show played silently on the television. Mom had wanted the exact minute included in the invitation. "I need the blue album before Laura gets here," she said. "It's upstairs. I know where it is." Then we agree. Mara. I knew that tone. My name lowered one careful inch, like a cup being set down before an argument. "My leg's acting up," I said. "Celeste can get it." Celeste poured coffee into Dad's world's okayest father mug. "I have to finish setting up. It's one flight of stairs." "Exactly," she said. "You'll be fine." I looked at the mug in her hand. "Mom?" Mom took a breath through her nose. "Your therapist wants you moving. You've never met my therapist. You tell me what she says. I tell you she wants me to move safely." Celeste added cream to her coffee. "You've gotten scared of doing anything without that cane. I'm not scared of doing anything. I'm scared of doing one specific thing, which is falling. You know what I mean?" "I do. That's the problem." The timer kept beeping. No one crossed the kitchen to turn it off. Its insistence grew absurd, as if the oven had joined the conversation and was taking my side. Mom finally slapped the button. "You can hold the railing," she said. "Your father went up those stairs when he could barely breathe. There was the family measuring stick. Dad had suffered, so the rest of us were forbidden from making reasonable choices. Dad also had me walking behind him with an oxygen tank." Mom's mouth tightened. Celeste set down the mug. "I'll walk behind you. You could use that same energy to get the album. Why are you making this a whole thing? I asked you for help, and I'm offering it. No, you're offering to supervise me doing the thing I asked you to do." Mom rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Both of you stop." "My cane didn't evaporate," I said. "Someone moved it." "Oh, for heaven's sake." She looked toward the stairs and then back at me. "Maybe this is an opportunity. An opportunity for what? To see that you're more capable than you think." Celeste nodded, relieved Mom had finally arrived at the prepared line. "Tough love," Mom said. Something in me went quiet, not calm. Calm has warmth in it. This was the quiet of entering a room and noticing all the furniture had been removed. I took the long black umbrella from the brass stand beside the front door. Dad bought it at a golf tournament in 1998, and it had survived 3 hurricanes, 2 moves, and his repeated attempts to leave it in restaurants. Celeste frowned. "What are you doing?" "Embracing opportunity. That's not meant to hold your weight. Neither are you, apparently." I planted the umbrella's metal tip against the floor. The shaft bowed as soon as I leaned on it. Mom made a frustrated sound. "You're being dramatic." I put it back in the stand. The stairs rose from the front hall in a straight run before turning at a small landing. 14 steps to the landing, 6 more to the bedrooms. I knew because I had counted them during Dad's last year. On bad nights, we stopped at step 9 so he could breathe. On worse nights, step 6. I gripped the railing with both hands and put my left foot on the first step. Celeste came behind me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "Don't crowd me. I'm spotting you. You're not lifting weights. You know, some people would appreciate support." I laughed once. It came out sharp. That's a gorgeous sentence. My right foot dragged on step 5. I lifted from the hip and kept going. Mom stood at the bottom with one hand on the newel post. She looked worried now, which somehow made it worse. If she had been certain I was exaggerating, she might have watched with annoyance. Instead, she watched like a person who had helped light a fire and was beginning to wonder where the extinguisher was. At the landing, I stopped. "I can get it from here," Celeste said. I turned my head. "Now?" "I was trying to help you get past the fear. You did it. I'm cured." Her lips pressed together. I finished the last 6 steps alone. The blue album sat on the floor of Mom's room beside 3 banker's boxes of photographs. It was enormous, covered in faded navy cloth, with thick black pages held between metal posts. Dad had started it before I was born. By the time Celeste and I were in college, the binding had split, So he fixed it with silver duct tape and declared it stronger than new. I slid one hand under it. The album pulled immediately against my wrist. Celeste stood in the doorway. "Take the other side," I said. She looked at me for a long moment, then grabbed it. We carried it to the top of the stairs. "I'll go first," she said. "No?" "Mara, don't be stubborn. You wanted me to prove I could do it. That was before you picked up something heavy." The album was always heavy. She glanced downstairs at Mom. There it was again, that invisible conversation passing between them while I stood inside it. I took the album from her and pressed it against my ribs. With one hand on the railing, I started down sideways. The first 3 steps went well enough. The 4th sent a pulse through my thigh. On the 5th, the edge of the album caught the banister, and one of the loose pages shifted. "Mara, let me, don't touch me." On step 7, my right knee stopped being a knee. It folded without warning. My hand slid down the polished rail. The album hit the stairs and opened as it fell, photographs spilling in black paper sheets and loose white squares. I caught myself with my left palm against the wooden edge of a step. Pain flashed up my arm. A framed photograph struck the floor below and shattered. Mom cried out, "The picture!" Not my name, the picture. I ended up sitting crooked across 2 steps, my right leg trapped beneath me and my left hand dripping thin red lines onto the carpet runner. Celeste crouched above me. "Are you okay?" The question was whispered, as though she didn't want Mom to hear her caring. "Move back. I can help you. Move." She did. Mom knelt in the hall gathering photographs from among the glass. The broken frame had held Dad standing between Celeste and me at a picnic, his arms around our shoulders. I remembered the day. Celeste had left after 20 minutes because the flies were bad. Dad and I stayed until dark. "Don't touch the glass," I said. "I'm being careful. I'm bleeding." Mom looked up then. Her face changed, not enough to erase what had come first. "Oh, Mara." I pulled my leg free and lowered myself 1 step at a time until I reached the hall. Celeste brought a dining chair. I sat, pressed the sleeve of my sweater against my palm, and looked toward the mudroom. The blue light above the door blinked once, then again. "What are you staring at?" Celeste asked. "Nothing." Mom stood with the cracked photograph in her hand. "I'll get the first aid kit. It's under the downstairs sink." "No, it isn't. I moved it there after you cut your finger on the mandolin." "I don't remember that." "I do. I was the one who came over." Mom went into the half bath. Celeste remained beside me, rubbing both palms down her trousers. "I didn't think you'd actually fall. You thought I was lying?" "No. You thought my damaged leg understood the assignment?" "Keep your voice down." "Why?" "Because Mom's already upset." I stared at her. She looked away first. The doorbell rang at 10:53, more than 2 hours before anyone had been invited. Aunt Laura never trusted start times. If an invitation said 1, she arrived before lunch with a serving spoon and a grievance. Mom emerged holding gauze, medical tape, and the tiny scissors she used for trimming her eyebrows. "Don't answer yet," she said. The bell rang again. Aunt Laura knocked through it. "Vivian, it's me. Your door is locked." "Of course it's locked," Celeste muttered. "That's how doors work." Under any other circumstances, I would have laughed. Mom wrapped my palm too tightly, then loosened it too much. The final result looked like a small white boxing glove. She tucked the stained sleeve of my sweater under so Laura wouldn't see. "What are we going to tell her?" Celeste asked. "About what?" Mom said. All 3 of us looked at the empty space beside the mudroom bench. Mom's eyes came to mine. "Mara misplaced her cane," she said carefully. Then she lost her balance. Before I could answer, Aunt Laura's face appeared in the narrow window beside the door. "I can see you," she called. I stood by, pushing against the chair with my uninjured hand. Mom reached for my arm. I pulled away. "Open the door," I said. "We wouldn't want grief to miss its start time." Celeste opened the door. Aunt Laura stood on the porch in a purple wool coat, holding a foil-covered casserole against her chest. Dad's younger sister had the same square jaw he did and none of his patience. Her silver hair was cut close around her ears, and she wore red lipstick before noon with the confidence of a woman who had never once asked whether an occasion called for it. "You're blocking the heat," Mom said. "You're not producing any heat." Laura stepped inside and looked directly at my bandaged hand. "What happened?" "Mara misplaced her cane," Mom said. Laura's gaze moved to Mom, then to Celeste, then back to me. "My hand isn't my cane." "She lost her balance," Celeste added. I heard the words, Celeste. They simply failed to answer my question. "I caught myself on the stairs," I said. Laura gave the casserole to Mom without looking away from me. "Where's the cane?" "That's what misplaced means," Mom said. "I know what words mean, Vivian." Mom peeled back a corner of the foil. "What is this?" "Potatoes. I'm making potatoes. You said you were making a roast. Roasts come with potatoes. Then now it has more." Laura took off her coat and hung it over Dad's raincoat. She wore a navy pantsuit underneath and white sneakers with thick soles. Dad used to tease her for dressing like a bank manager headed to a tennis match. She always told him he dressed like a hardware store had become a person. She came to me and held out her hand. "Do you need help standing?" The clean directness of it almost undid me. "Yes." She braced her feet, let me choose the grip, and pulled only when I pulled. No surprise pressure, no cheerful instruction, no speech about what my body was secretly capable of. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me. Tell me where the roast is." "In the refrigerator." "And where should it be?" "The oven." Laura looked at the kitchen clock. "At 11 o'clock? It cooks low." "Is it cooking low in the refrigerator?" "No." Mom set the casserole down. We had a disruption. Laura glanced at my hand again. I gathered. I made it to the kitchen by sliding one hand along the wall. Celeste brought the dining chair behind me, its legs scraping the hardwood. "Stop doing that," I said. "I'm making sure you have somewhere to sit. It sounds like you're moving a piano. I'm trying to help." Laura watched her. My aunt did not have Mom's talent for strategic blindness. Her eyes narrowed, but she let the moment pass. The roast was too cold to go straight into the oven, and I had lost almost an hour. I took it out, then stood staring at the red mass in the pan. Normally, I would have recalculated. Increase the temperature, change the side timing, move the memorial by 15 minutes without telling Mom I had moved it. Instead, I sat down. "What's next?" Mom asked. "I don't know. You made a list. It's on the cabinet." She went to the list and read it. Her lips moved slightly. "Brown roast," she said. "Yes." "How?" "In the Dutch oven." "Which one is that?" "The red pot you've owned since 1986. Mom opened the lower cabinet and pulled out a colander. "That has holes," Laura said. "I know that. Then I've eliminated one option for you." Celeste stifled a laugh. Mom glared at both of them. "Why don't you do it, Laura? Because you're the one who wants to learn." "I never said I wanted to learn." "No, you asked an injured woman what came next." Laura found the Dutch oven on her second try. There was a terrible, liberating 10 minutes in which no one knew how to proceed without me. Mom held the recipe card upside down. Celeste tried to heat oil at the highest setting and smoke the kitchen. Laura opened 3 windows, used a dish towel to wave air away from the detector, and said, "Daniel survived Korea for this pot roast to kill us." "He wasn't in Korea," Mom snapped. "I know. It's humor, Vivian." Dad had never served in any war. He had once spent 4 days at a plumbing convention in Milwaukee and returned with stories that made it sound like a naval campaign. I could have saved them. Every cell in my body leaned toward the stove, not from kindness, from habit. A crooked picture begged to be straightened, even if the wall belonged to someone else. Then my palm pulsed under the bandage, and I stayed in the chair. By noon, the roast was in the oven, though no one had browned all its sides. Mom's hair had frizzed from the smoke. Laura had taken over the carrots after Celeste peeled one into a tapered spear and declared it finished. The next arrivals were Noreen, Laura's wife, carrying 2 pies, and Dad's old friend Frank Reeves, who lived 4 houses down and still picked up Mom's newspaper on rainy mornings. Noreen took one look at the kitchen and quietly put the pies where they would be safe. Frank shook my left hand because my right was bandaged. "Workshop accident?" he asked. "Staircase." "That's not a workshop. Apparently it was a training facility." Mom dropped a serving spoon into a drawer harder than necessary. Frank looked at her, then at me. "I brought bourbon." "You can stay," Laura said. By 1:30, the house filled with the softened noises of people trying to be respectful around grief. Careful laughter, murmured greetings, cabinet doors caught before they slammed. Mom had invited 12 people. 7 came. Cousin Ellen drove in from Richmond wearing Dad's favorite color, a shade of orange he had once described as road crew chic. 2 former neighbors arrived with a vase of lilies so fragrant, Mom moved them to the laundry room and then worried the relocation was insulting. Everyone asked me where to put things. Coats, ice, wine, folding chairs, the lilies, a bowl of green beans nobody had requested. Each question came automatically, often while Mom stood closer. The first few times I answered. Then Noreen handed me a stack of napkins and asked where Mom wanted them. "I don't know." She blinked. "You don't?" "No." Mom turned from across the room, beside the plates. Noreen put them there. Civilization continued. Celeste built her recording station in the den. She moved the small table by Dad's chair, angled the ring light toward the window, and clipped a microphone to a floor lamp. The result looked less like a memorial than an interrogation run by a lifestyle brand. She asked Frank to sit first. "Just talk to the camera," she said. "I don't talk to machines. You talked to Daniel's answering machine for 20 years. Daniel might call back." Celeste smiled patiently. "Tell us your favorite memory." Frank looked into the bright circle of light. "One time your dad and I found a raccoon in his garage." Mom, standing behind the camera, said, "Not that one." Frank frowned. "That's my favorite. Something meaningful." It was meaningful to the raccoon. Celeste stopped the recording. The next attempt involved Cousin Ellen describing Dad teaching her to change a tire. Halfway through, Celeste asked her to start again without mentioning the flat happened after Dad had borrowed her car and forgotten to fill it with gas. Ellen stared at her. "But that's why we had to change it on the shoulder. We're looking for the emotional truth. The emotional truth is Uncle Daniel didn't fill the tank." From my chair near the doorway, I watched Celeste press her fingertips to her temples. She caught me smiling. "Do you want to go next?" "No. You'll have to eventually." "Why? Because you're his daughter." "So are you. I'm hosting. You're holding a phone." She glanced at my empty hands and lowered her voice. "If you'd use one of Mom's walking sticks, we could get a nice shot of you coming into the room." "Mom's walking sticks are curtain rods. She has Dad's hiking pole. In the shed. I can get it. You couldn't get an album." Her mouth went still. Aunt Laura entered with a tray of cheese and crackers. Mara said no. Celeste straightened. "This is a family conversation." Laura placed the tray on the table. "I'm family. It's the chief qualification for why I'm here. Stay out of it. You made it an exhibit." Mom appeared behind her. "What's going on now?" "Nothing," Celeste said. Again, nothing. The busiest word in our family. Mom looked at the unoccupied chair under the ring light. "Mara, just say something about your father." "I will at 6:20 with everyone else. It would mean a lot to me. Then listen when I say it." Her expression tightened. It was not anger exactly. It was the strain of a key refusing to turn in a lock that had always opened. At 4:15, Mom cut into the roast and found the center, dark pink and cool. She stood over it with the carving knife. "This meat is raw." "It needs another hour," I said. "We're supposed to eat at 5:30. "Yes, that's not an hour. It's more than an hour. You know what I mean." Laura peered over her shoulder. "Put it back, but the carrots will burn. Take the carrots out." "What about the potatoes?" "You have 2 kinds. Sacrifice one." Mom looked at me. "Mara." I folded my bandaged hand into my lap. "I'd take the carrots out. I know that part." "Then you're doing great." She looked honestly hurt, and the little knife inside me turned. I almost stood. I almost apologized. Noreen touched Mom's shoulder. "Vivian, why don't we put out the cheese?" "No one's starving. I wanted it like last year." No one answered that. Last year, the roast had come out at 5:28. The potatoes were crisp. The candles were lit. The record was already turning, and every photograph had been placed according to the list Mom kept changing. People had praised her for making Dad's anniversary beautiful. I had gone home with gravy on my coat and a fever from a urinary infection I had ignored for 3 days. At 6:12, we still had not eaten. People filled plates with potatoes, green beans, bread, cheese, and the outer slices of roast. Frank poured bourbon into coffee cups because Mom had hidden the proper glasses somewhere safe. Celeste dimmed the lamps in the den. Mom put Dad's Christmas tape on the reel-to-reel player. The machine turned, hissed, and filled the room with Dad clearing his throat. Then his voice, younger and irritated, said, "Vivian, you pressed the wrong damn button." Everyone laughed. Mom did too, one hand covering her mouth. For a few minutes, the room softened. Dad complained about tangled lights. Someone dropped a pan in a distant kitchen. Laura's voice, decades younger, told him to stop narrating and help. At 6:20, Mom paused the tape. We sat in a circle around Dad's empty chair. Celeste began her prepared speech about absence, legacy, and the people who showed up when it mattered. I looked across the room at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Above the mudroom door, visible through the hall, the camera blinked blue again. I remembered reconnecting it to the local drive. I remembered the password, too. My father's initials, followed by the year he bought the house. For the first time all day, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. Celeste spoke for 4 minutes without saying anything I recognized as Dad. She called him a steady light, though he had once thrown a socket wrench across the garage because a lawnmower belt refused to cooperate. She said he taught us that family always made room for each other. Dad hated having people stay overnight and kept the guest room deliberately cold. She said his greatest gift was showing us how to be present. That one sat in the room between us. Celeste had visited 6 times during his last year. 7, if I counted the afternoon she arrived while he was asleep, took a bag of tomatoes from Mom's garden, and left before he woke up. Mom listened with tears balanced along her lower lashes. Maybe she heard a different speech. Maybe grief translated. When Celeste finished, everyone murmured something gentle. Frank drank from his coffee cup. Aunt Laura picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Mom looked around the circle. Who wants to go next? No one did. People preferred memories when they were allowed to arrive accidentally. Ask for one on command, and the mind produced only license plate numbers and old advertising jingles. Frank finally leaned forward. Daniel owed me $40 for 23 years. Mom frowned. That's your memory. He paid me back every Friday. Then he didn't owe you for 23 years. He borrowed the same 40 again every Monday. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Frank rubbed the cup between his palms. We started doing it after he got laid off from the plant. He needed money that first week and hated asking. After he got another job, I asked him for 40 on a Monday, paid him back Friday. Then he asked me the next Monday. We kept passing the same 2 20s back and forth. Why? Ellen asked. Frank shrugged. Because it made him laugh. Mom's face loosened. He never told me that. It wasn't much of a secret. That's exactly why he should have told me. Laura said, he didn't tell you because you would have put the dates in a ledger. I would not. You kept a ledger for Christmas cards. So I knew who needed one. We laughed again, including Mom. The memories came easier after that. Noreen remembered Dad quietly replacing a broken hinge at their house during a birthday party, then denying he had done it because Laura had specifically told him not to bring tools. Ellen remembered him refusing to use GPS and getting lost within 8 miles of his own house. One of the former neighbors described Dad mowing a strip of her lawn every week for 11 years and never admitting it. They were small memories, stubborn, funny, useful ones. They sounded like him. Then Mom turned to me. Mara. The room waited. I had too many memories. They crowded one another until none could get through the door. Dad asleep in his recliner with the oxygen tube caught beneath his collar. Dad teaching me to skim fat from gravy. Dad pretending he couldn't hear the concentrator alarm because he didn't want me to increase the flow. Dad gripping my wrist after my fall on the back steps, his face gray with fear, saying, "I shouldn't have asked you to carry it." Mom had been inside calling an ambulance. Celeste had been in a yoga class with her phone turned off. I looked at his empty chair. "He cheated at cards," I said. Mom blinked. "That's what you want to say?" "He kept an ace under the cushion." Frank nodded. "I knew it." "You did not," Laura said. "I suspected." "He also marked the kings," I said, a tiny pencil dot in the upper left corner. Mom stared at me. "We used those cards with guests." "I know. All those times he won. He wasn't lucky." Laura laughed so hard she had to put down her plate. Mom tried not to. She pressed her lips together, but a sound escaped. Soon she was bent forward, one hand against her forehead. "I cannot believe him," she said. The tape remained paused behind her. 2 reels held Dad's voice in perfect stillness. For that minute, I loved all of them without caution. That was the cruelty of family. Even after someone cut the rope you were holding, your body still remembered how it felt to be tied together. At 7, we ate the repaired dinner. The roast had gone dry at the edges while the middle reached safety. The potatoes were excellent because there were enough of them to feed a church basement. Mom apologized for the food until Laura told her that if she insulted the potatoes one more time, she was taking both dishes home. No one mentioned my cane again. I watched Celeste carry plates, refill wine, and charm Ellen into sitting for a recorded memory. She moved easily through the rooms. Once I saw her glance toward the mudroom. When she noticed me watching, she asked if I needed anything. My cane. Her cheeks changed color. I meant water. I know. She walked away with my glass. By 8:30, the former neighbors left. Frank stayed to help fold chairs, but mostly stood in the kitchen telling Laura how to fold them. Ellen hugged Mom for a long time, then squeezed my shoulder and told me to call if I needed anything. People often said that when they had no idea what the anything was. Laura and Noreen were last. "You sure you don't want us to stay?" Laura asked. Mom began stacking plates. "We're fine." Laura looked at me. I had spent the past 2 hours measuring the distance from my chair to the den doorway, from the doorway to Dad's old desk, from the desk to the nearest outlet. I could reach the local camera feed from my phone, but the password screen was temperamental on mobile. Dad's old desktop was still connected to the house network. "I'll call you," I said. It was enough. Laura kissed my forehead, put on her purple coat, and left with Noreen. Their car lights swept across the front windows and disappeared. The house became quiet in the ugly way houses do after company, full of used glasses and dented cushions. Mom carried plates toward the kitchen. "We need to soak the roasting pan." I stayed seated. "Celeste, can you bring in the cups?" Celeste was dismantling the ring light. "In a minute." Mom looked at me. "Could you at least sort the photographs? Some of them got mixed up when the album fell. The photographs were still spread across one end of the dining table. Someone had swept the glass, but I could see 2 glittering pieces under the radiator. My hand hurts. "You can use the other one." I laughed. Mom put down the plates. "What? Nothing. Why does everyone in this family say nothing when it obviously means something? That's an excellent question." Celeste collapsed the tripod with a series of irritated clicks. "Can we not do this tonight?" "Do what?" Mom asked. "Whatever this is." I pushed myself up using the arms of the chair. My right leg had settled into a deep, hot ache, but the worst of the weakness had passed. "Where are you going?" Mom asked. "Dad's desk." "Why?" "I need the computer." "Now?" "Yes." Celeste moved into the doorway, not enough to block it, enough that I noticed. "What do you need it for?" she asked. I held her gaze. She stepped aside. I crossed the den with one hand on the furniture. Dad's desk sat beneath the window, still cluttered with a stapler, 2 dried pens, and a magnifying glass he used to read instruction manuals while refusing to admit he needed reading glasses. The computer took almost 3 minutes to start. Mom complained from the kitchen about people leaving food on plates. Celeste stood behind me until I turned. I need space. This is Dad's computer. Yes. So I'm allowed to stand here. Then stand quietly. She left. I opened the local network page and entered the password. The camera appeared as a square gray icon labeled Mud Entry. Beneath it was a timeline broken into blue segments where motion had triggered recording. The first clip began at 11:47 the night before. I watched myself hook the cane over the bench after telling Celeste goodnight. I disappeared toward the hall. The mudroom stayed empty for 40 seconds. Celeste entered. She looked toward the hall, took my cane, and opened the door to the attached garage. The camera angle covered the doorway and a slice of Dad's work area beyond it. She walked to the scarred wooden workbench and slid the cane behind it, deep into the narrow space between the bench and the wall. She returned to the mudroom without it. I stopped the clip. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it beneath my tongue. There was another motion segment 4 minutes later. Mom came in wearing Dad's green cardigan. She opened the dryer, moved a load of towels, then looked through the garage doorway. Celeste was still there. The camera's microphone was old, but the house was quiet. Mom's voice came through first. "What are you doing with that?" Celeste answered from the garage. "She doesn't need it for one morning. Put it back before she notices." "I will." A pause. Then Mom said, "Not right away. If she finds it too quickly, she'll just make a point of using it." I gripped the edge of the desk. Celeste reappeared in the doorway. "She's made that injury her whole identity." "That's not fair," Mom said. For 1 second, relief broke through me so quickly it hurt. Then Mom lowered her voice. "But she has become frightened. Sometimes people need to be pushed. She'll be fine. She always is." Celeste leaned against the frame. "She'll be mad." Mom gave a tired little laugh. "Mara always forgives us afterward." The clip ended. I watched it again, not because I doubted what I heard, because some betrayals were so ordinary, your mind kept searching for the hidden dramatic part. There was no shout, no threat, no moment where either woman looked cruel. Celeste tucked hair behind her ear. Mom moved towels from washer to dryer. They discussed removing my mobility device the way they might discuss switching me to decaf. I downloaded both clips. Then I trimmed them into one file and sent it to the family text containing only Mom, Celeste, and me. Under it, I typed, "You planned my pain because you were certain I would still serve dinner." I pressed send. 2 phones chimed in different rooms. The silence afterward lasted less than 5 seconds. Celeste came into the den first, holding her phone. "Mara, wait." Mom appeared behind her, pale. I closed the camera page and stood. "Where is it?" I asked. Neither answered. My cane. Celeste swallowed. "In the garage. Get it." She went. Mom stepped toward me. "This looks terrible." "It is terrible." "You don't understand the conversation." "I heard the whole conversation. I was worried about you. You helped her hide the thing that keeps me from falling. I told her to put it back. Then you told her not to." Mom's face crumpled around the fact. Celeste returned with my cane. Dust clung to the walnut shaft. A gray cobweb stretched from the handle to the brass collar. She held it out. I took it without touching her hand. "Mara," she said. "I honestly didn't think, I know." The words stopped her. I planted the rubber tip on the floor. My whole body recognized the support before I put weight on it. Mom reached for my sleeve. "Please don't leave like this." I looked at her hand until she dropped it. Then I called Aunt Laura. Laura answered on the second ring. "What happened?" "Not hello." She knew. "I need a ride. Give me 10 minutes. I can drive. I just don't want to leave my car here overnight without telling someone." That sentence made no sense. "I know. 10 minutes." She hung up. Mom stood near the desk with her arms wrapped around herself. Celeste remained beside the doorway, staring at the message on her phone as though it might improve if she didn't touch it. "You called Laura?" Mom said. "Yes." Why would you involve her? She's driving me home. You said you can drive. I changed my mind. So stay here. You're tired and we're all upset. I'm not sleeping in a house where people hide medical equipment from me." Celeste flinched. "Can you stop saying it like that? How should I say it? You make it sound sinister. You put my cane behind a workbench. For an hour, it was gone all day. Because everything got chaotic. After I fell." She rubbed both hands over her face. "I forgot, okay?" I looked at her. It was not a look I planned. Something in it made her drop her hands. Mom moved closer. "No one intended for you to fall. Then what did you intend? For you to see that you could manage a little without it. I didn't manage. We know that now. You knew it when I told you." Mom's mouth opened, then closed. The ring light lay folded on the rug behind Celeste. Dad's chair sat 3 feet from its usual place after all. At some point, while I was dealing with my hand or the food, she had moved it and no one had objected. The indentation its front leg had made in the carpet showed where it belonged. I walked over and nudged the chair back into place with my hip. Celeste watched me. "Are you going to send that video to everyone?" "No." Her shoulders lowered. I hated that relief more than I expected. "Thank you," Mom whispered. "I'm not protecting you. I'm tired. I didn't mean you thought I was still taking care of you." The doorbell rang. Laura did not wait to be let in. She used the spare key Mom had given her after Dad died and then complained she never used. She entered with her purple coat half-buttoned and Noreen behind her in a long camel coat, still carrying the handbag she had brought to dinner. Laura looked at my cane first. Dust still marked the shaft. "You found it." Celeste did. No one spoke. Laura's gaze sharpened. "Where?" "The garage." "I checked the garage," Mom said. "You checked near the door," Celeste replied. Mom turned on her. "Don't correct me now. You're making it sound like I acted alone." There it was, the first crack in their alliance. Not remorse, distribution of blame. Laura looked between them. "Someone want to tell me why Mara's cane was in the garage?" Mom said, "It's been a very emotional day." Noreen closed the front door softly. Laura waited. Mom could outlast most people in silence. She could wash dishes through one, reorganize a drawer, clip coupons. Laura was the exception. Their silences had grown up together and knew one another's weak spots. Finally, Mom said, "Celeste thought Mara had become overly dependent on it." Laura blinked. "So she took it? It was supposed to be temporary. And you knew?" Mom looked toward the kitchen. Laura's face changed so slowly it was worse than anger. "You stood in this hall and told me she misplaced it. I was trying not to ruin Daniel's anniversary. Mara was bleeding, which is exactly why I was trying to keep everyone calm." Laura looked at me. "Get your things." Mom stiffened. "She doesn't need orders from you." "No," Laura said. "Apparently she has plenty. I had packed only one overnight bag because I was supposed to stay through the next afternoon and help Mom put the house back together. My clothes were in the guest room, the room she kept too cold because Dad had kept it too cold. I climbed the stairs with my cane and Laura beside me. At the landing, she said, "Do you need my arm?" "Not yet." "All right." She didn't touch me. The blue album was still open on the floor outside Mom's bedroom. Loose photographs covered 3 steps. Laura bent to pick one up, then stopped. "Do you want these moved?" "No." She left them. In the guest room, I folded clothes badly and pushed them into my bag. My toothbrush was in the upstairs bathroom. My phone charger was behind the nightstand. Ordinary objects became accusations when packed in anger. The spare socks said I had expected safety. The paperback on the pillow said I had expected rest. Laura stood by the door. "Did they do this before?" she asked. "Hide my cane?" "No. You know what I mean." I zipped the bag. "They've hidden other things." "What things?" "Not objects." She nodded as if that answer was enough. Downstairs, Noreen waited near the front door. Celeste had moved into the kitchen. Mom stood in the hall holding my winter scarf. You forgot this, she said. It was still around my neck. That one's yours, I said. She looked down at the scarf in her hands. It was gray. Mine was blue. Oh? For the first time that night, she looked old to me, not fragile. Mom had always hated being called fragile. Just older than the woman who had stood in the mudroom the night before, deciding how long I should be denied my cane. Mara, please stay until morning. I'll come back for my car. We can talk when everyone's rested. I heard you when you thought I wasn't listening. Rest won't change it. Celeste appeared in the kitchen doorway. Mom didn't hide it. She approved it. She told me to put it back. Eventually, I'm the one who took it. I turned to her. What are you asking me to do with that? Her eyes filled, which irritated me because mine had not. Celeste could cry beautifully. Her face softened, her eyes shone, and not one part of her became swollen or damp in an inconvenient place. I'm trying to take responsibility. You're trying to separate your part from hers. What do you want from me? Nothing tonight. That's not fair. A laugh slipped out of Laura, but there was no humor in it. Celeste looked at her. Stay out of this. I tried, Laura said. Then you put your sister on the stairs without a cane. I did not put her anywhere. You created a situation and waited for her to solve it. That's how this family puts Mara everywhere. No one answered. I opened the front door. Mom caught it before I could step through. Text me when you get there. The request was so normal it nearly worked. I almost said I would. Instead, I stepped onto the porch. Noreen drove. Laura sat in the back with me, though I told her she didn't have to. My leg trembled from fatigue, and I rested the cane between my knees. For 3 blocks, no one spoke. Then Laura said, How bad is the cut? Not bad. And the leg? It'll settle. Do you need urgent care? No. Do you want tea when we get home? Yes. She looked out the window. Good. I'm excellent at tea. You microwave water. It becomes hot, doesn't it? Noreen said from the front. She's not excellent at tea. At their house, Laura gave me the downstairs guest room and placed a towel on the bed for my suitcase because the wheels had touched the ground. Noreen replaced Mom's loose gauze wrap with a proper bandage from a first aid kit, organized by size and purpose. Neither asked to see the video. That restraint made me want to show them. I sat at their kitchen table while Laura microwaved water in a mug patterned with lemons. I opened the file on my phone and set it between us. Mom lied directly to you, I said. You can watch if you want. Laura put on her reading glasses. The 3 of us watched the clip without interrupting. When Mom's voice said, Mara always forgives us afterward, Laura removed her glasses and folded them carefully. Noreen slid the phone back toward me. Laura's tea went cold. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For every time I let you handle something, because Vivian said you were better at it. The apology found a place I had not protected. I looked down at the lemon mug. I usually was better at it. That's not the same as being the only person who should do it. At 1:14 in the morning, Mom texted, Are you there? Then, I hope Laura understands she only saw a small part of what happened. Celeste wrote in the family thread, I'm not discussing this by text. 3 minutes later, privately, she sent me 6 paragraphs by text. She said she loved me. She said she had been concerned for months. She said the camera made the moment look calculated when it had actually been spontaneous. She said she understood why I was angry, but hoped I could eventually recognize the care behind the mistake. I typed several answers and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, I need space. Her reply came immediately. How much? I turned off my phone. Sleep arrived in pieces. Pipes clicked in the walls. A truck groaned down the road before dawn. At some point, Laura's cat pushed open the guest room door, stared at me with open suspicion, and left. By 9, my palm had swollen and my leg felt bruised from the inside. Noreen made eggs. Laura burned toast, blamed the toaster, and asked when I wanted to retrieve my car. Now. Mom was in Dad's cardigan when we arrived. She had slept on the couch. The dining room still held the dirty glasses and scattered photographs. Celeste was gone. "I made coffee," Mom said. "I'm just getting my things." "You took your things." "The tape player." Her eyes moved toward the sideboard. "Why?" "Dad gave me the recordings. I paid to have the machine repaired, but we use it here. You used it yesterday." "For his anniversaries?" I unplugged the player. Mom's voice sharpened. "You're taking your father away because you're angry with me." "No, I'm taking home the thing he gave me." She gripped the back of a chair. "There are 12 boxes of tapes in the closet. I'll get them another day." Laura lifted the machine before I could. Mom watched her carry it to the car. "I need you to show me how to pay the heating bill online," she said. The change of subject was so abrupt it was almost elegant. I wrote the instructions in the blue notebook. Which blue notebook? The one labeled House Accounts. I don't know where that is. Desk drawer. What if I can't find it? I picked up my overnight bag. Call Celeste. Mom stared at me as if I had suggested calling a stranger. Then her phone rang in the kitchen, and without thinking, she looked to me to answer it. I walked out while it was still ringing. Laura set the reel-to-reel player on my dining table and immediately reached for a tissue to wipe dust from the cabinet. "Don't clean it," I said. I know. She put the tissue back in her pocket. My house was a one-story brick bungalow at the end of a narrow street where everyone had small yards and strong opinions about trash collection. Dad had helped me buy it 12 years earlier by inspecting every outlet, window latch, and patch of basement wall, as if the seller had personally challenged him to uncover fraud. He found nothing serious and remained disappointed for weeks. After my injury, he installed a second railing on the front steps. It did not match the first. He claimed matching was a decorative concern and therefore beneath him. Laura carried my overnight bag inside while I unlocked the back door for Noreen, who had the boxes of accessories from the tape player. "You don't have to unpack anything," I said. "We know," Noreen said. Laura plugged in the machine. Noreen looked at her. "That's unpacking. It's one plug. It's also Mara's house." Laura pulled the plug back out. Fine. I loved her for being helpful. I also wanted both of them gone. The two feelings did not cancel each other. That was useful to discover. After they left, I stood in my kitchen listening to the refrigerator hum. My coffee cup was where I had abandoned it the day before, one pale ring drying at the bottom. Mail sat on the counter. A sweater hung over the back of a chair. Nothing in the house had changed to accommodate what happened. I took 3 steps without the cane, just because I could. Then my right leg buckled slightly, and I caught the counter. The old shame rose before the pain did. I could hear Celeste saying, "I relied on that thing too much." I could hear Mom calling it an opportunity. Their voices had gotten inside the movement itself. I picked up the cane and walked the rest of the way to the bedroom. By Monday morning, I had 23 missed calls. 9 were from Mom, 11 from Celeste, 2 from Laura, and 1 from a client who believed sending me a photograph of 6 crumpled receipts counted as bookkeeping. I answered the client first. At 10, Mom left a voicemail. "I found the blue notebook, but the password you wrote for the utility account doesn't work. I don't know whether you wrote it wrong or they changed something. Please call me before noon because I'm not sitting on hold all day." At 10:17, Celeste texted, "Call Mom." At 10:20, she sent, "Please don't punish her by ignoring something important." At 10:22, "The heating bill is due." I opened the accounting folder I kept for Mom. The bill was not due for 11 days. The password in the blue notebook was current, but Mom often mistook a lowercase l for the number 1. I typed, "The first character is a lowercase l." Celeste replied, "Can you just call and walk her through it?" "No." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. "You're really doing this?" I set the phone face down. My bookkeeping business occupied the smallest bedroom, which Dad had converted into an office by removing a closet door and building shelves that were almost level. 3 framed certificates hung above my desk, though one was mostly concealed by a calendar because I disliked the photograph of myself accepting it. I had 4 monthly clients, 3 quarterly clients, and a rotating cast of people who believed taxes were a natural disaster rather than an annual event. Numbers were comforting. They could be misplaced, mislabeled, or misunderstood, but they did not change based on who was most upset. At 11, the office phone rang. Mom knew that number was for clients. She called it only when I did not answer my cell. "Ellison Bookkeeping," I said. I got into the account. "Good. You could sound pleased." "I'm working." "I am aware that you work, Mara." "Then why did you call this number?" A pause. "I wanted to tell you I paid it." "Good." "I'm not helpless. I didn't say you were. You're behaving as if I'm incapable of understanding things. I gave you written instructions. Written instructions are not the same as help. They are when the task is paying a bill." Mom breathed into the phone. I could picture her at Dad's desk in the cardigan, one hand holding the receiver and the other flattening the notebook page. "I made mistakes," she said. The sentence pulled me upright. Then she continued, "But leaving every responsibility at once is also a mistake." There it was, not an apology, a trade offer. "What responsibilities? You know what you do for me. I do. Do you? That's not fair. It's a question. I'm still your mother, and I'm still your daughter. You don't feel like one." I looked at the spreadsheets on my screen. Green cells, gray cells, every account assigned somewhere. What does a daughter feel like? She hung up. The call left me shaking more than shouting would have. I spent 40 minutes entering the same invoice twice and deleting it once. At lunch, I carried my sandwich to the living room and did not eat it. At 2, the physical therapy clinic called to confirm Wednesday's appointment. The receptionist asked whether I had experienced any falls since my last visit. I said yes. The word felt loud in my empty house. My therapist, Adrienne, examined my palm and tested the strength in my right leg without making a face. She was compact, calm, and had the unnerving habit of waiting after I answered a question, as if she expected the truth to arrive late. "What were you using for support?" she asked. "The railing." "No cane?" "It was unavailable." She waited. My sister hid it. Adrienne stopped writing. My mother knew. She set the clipboard on the counter. "Were you trying to get away from them when you fell?" "No, I was carrying a photo album down the stairs." "Why?" "My mother asked me to." Another wait. I'm aware of how this sounds. I'm trying to understand how it happened. It happened because I went up the stairs. That's the mechanical part. I looked away. She checked the range of motion in my ankle and found inflammation but no new loss of function. The palm needed time. The leg needed reduced strain, heat, and the exercises I already knew. Before I left, she adjusted my grip on the cane. "You're not using this too much," she said. "You're using it correctly." My throat tightened. "Can you write that on a prescription pad? I can write it on a billboard if necessary." I laughed, but my eyes burned all the way to the parking lot. Over the next 3 weeks, Mom tested the boundary by disguising need as information. The washing machine was making a sound. The grocery store had stopped carrying Dad's coffee. Frank put her newspaper too close to the hedge. A letter arrived from the insurance company and used the phrase, "annual notice." The bathroom faucet dripped 4 times every minute. I answered questions when I could answer them as a daughter. I did not call the plumber, schedule the repair, compare prices, or reassure her 6 times afterward. When she mentioned the faucet, I said, "That's annoying." She said, "Is that all?" I agree it's annoying. You know what your father used to do? Put a washcloth under it and ignore it for 6 months. He would fix it. Eventually. She called Celeste. I knew because Celeste called me 17 minutes later. "What kind of faucet does Mom have?" "A silver one." "That's not what I mean." "Then I don't know." "You bought it. Dad bought it. I installed the aerator." "Where's the shutoff?" "Under the sink. There are 2 knobs. Hot and cold." "Which one?" "Turn both." "This is ridiculous. Plumbers exist. They want $140 just to come out. That sounds normal. You know how to do this. I closed my eyes. I know enough to know that I'm not doing it. You've made your point. I wasn't making a point. What do you call this? Not fixin' the faucet. The line went quiet. Then Celeste said, Mom cries every time I'm there. I'm sorry. She barely slept after you left. I barely slept too. But you have Laura taking your side. I didn't know there were sides. Don't do that. Do what? Act calm so I sound unreasonable. I leaned against my kitchen counter. I'm calm because I'm tired. So am I. I'm leaving work early twice a week because she calls me over every little thing. I looked through the window at a squirrel digging furiously in my flower bed. She called me too, I said. Not like this. Exactly like this. No, because you knew what to do. There was the family prayer again. Mara knew. Mara could. Mara would. You'll learn, I said. Celeste hung up. The memorial video arrived on my porch that Friday. Not electronically. Celeste brought an external drive in a padded envelope, a folder of handwritten notes, and the sweater she had left at Mom's house. She stood beneath Dad's mismatched railing in a beige coat, pressing the doorbell twice as if the first ring had failed morally. I opened the door, but not the storm door. What is it? Can I come in? I'm working. It's 7:30. I'm self-employed. We're badly supervised. She did not smile. She held up the padded envelope. Mom wants the video finished before Thanksgiving. Then finish it. You know I don't edit. Neither do I. You edited Dad's retirement video. I cut 6 clips together on free software. That's more than I know. Learn. Her eyes narrowed. Is that your answer to everything now? It's popular in this family. She looked past me into the living room. The reel-to-reel player sat on a low cabinet beside the boxes I had collected from Mom's closet during 2 brief trips when Mom was at the grocery store. Laura came with me both times. Neither trip lasted more than 15 minutes. You took all the tapes. They're mine. Mom says Dad gave them to both of you. Dad labeled the boxes Mara. He labeled everything with whoever was supposed to deal with it. The words hit their target because they were partly true. I kept my hand on the storm door latch. Celeste pushed the envelope against the glass. The video would mean something to her. Then make it. I don't have time. I almost laughed. She saw it. That isn't what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I have a full-time job. So do I. Your schedule is flexible. My body is flexible. My schedule is full. She lowered the envelope. You've been waiting years to say all this, haven't you? No, I think you have. I was too busy. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said very quietly, Are you ever going to forgive me? Behind her, a delivery truck turned onto the street. I thought of Mom's voice on the recording. She always forgives us afterward. I don't know, I said. Celeste nodded as if I had struck her. She put the padded envelope on the porch and walked back to her car. I left it outside until rain began tapping against the railing. Then I brought it in, dried the envelope with a dish towel, and set it beside the tape player. I did not open it. For 6 days, the envelope sat beside the tape player and made itself important by doing nothing. I moved it to dust. I moved it back when I needed the corner of the cabinet for a client file. Once, after a glass of wine, I plugged the drive into my computer and stared at the folder labeled Dad_Final without opening it. The name bothered me. Dad had never been final in his life. He returned shirts after wearing them, reopened arguments at breakfast, and repainted the downstairs bathroom twice because the first shade of white looked too committed. I ejected the drive. Mom invited me to Thanksgiving by mailing a card. It arrived on a Tuesday, cream-colored with a watercolor pumpkin on the front. Inside, she had written dinner at 4. Come whenever you're ready. The phrase was either generous or hostile. With Mom, both could fit in the same envelope. She had not called me for 8 days. That was the longest silence between us since Dad entered hospice. Even when she had nothing to say, she used to phone and report the behavior of birds outside the kitchen window. One blue jay is bullying everyone. That's what blue jays do, Mom. Your father never liked them. Dad hated anything with confidence. Now I missed updates I had once answered while brushing my teeth. I set the card on the counter and called Laura. Do I have to go? No. That was fast. You asked a yes or no question. Do you think I should go? That's a different question. I waited. She said, yes. Why? Because if you stay home to protect your peace, you'll spend all day wondering what's happening over there and lose your peace anyway. That's annoyingly specific. I'm your aunt. I watched you develop the problem. We agreed I would ride with her and Noreen, which gave me an arrival time and an escape route. I texted Mom that I would come at 2 and bring a pie. She responded with a thumbs up. Mom had never used that symbol correctly. From her, it always looked like a threat. The morning of Thanksgiving, Celeste called while I was brushing egg wash over an apple pie. I need you to tell me what size turkey Mom normally buys. I don't know. Yes, you do. 12 to 14 pounds, probably. She bought 22. For how many people? 9. Does she think Frank is bringing a football team? She said bigger was safer. With poultry, that's rarely true. Celeste lowered her voice. It's still frozen in the middle. I looked at the pie. When did she buy it? Yesterday. Why? She didn't want it taking up the refrigerator. Where was she keeping it before yesterday? At the store, Mara. I pinched the edge of the crust. You need to finish thawing it in cold water. Keep changing the water. The sink isn't big enough. Use a cooler. Where's the cooler? Garage shelf. The garage is full of Dad's junk. The word landed. Celeste heard it too. I mean his tools, she said. I wiped flour from my fingers. There's a blue cooler behind the lawn chairs. Can you come early? No. It would make things easier. For whom? A pan clattered on her end. Mom said something I couldn't make out. Celeste sighed. Fine, 2 o'clock. She did not thank me. When we arrived, smoke drifted from an open kitchen window. Laura sniffed. That's either sage or wiring. Noreen carried the pie. Don't encourage yourself. Mom answered the door in a rust-colored dress I had helped her buy for Dad's retirement dinner. She looked beautiful, which made me angry with myself for expecting Grief to dress her differently. Her eyes went to my cane. This time, she said nothing about it. You came, she said. I said I would. I know. We hugged carefully. Mom held on 1 second longer than I did. The house had the frantic warmth of a holiday underway without competent supervision. Every burner held a pot. The kitchen island was covered with onion skins, measuring cups, and one open laptop displaying a recipe obscured by flour. Celeste stood at the sink with both arms submerged in a blue cooler. Happy Thanksgiving, she said through clenched teeth. You found it. It was behind the lawn chairs, just as prophecy foretold. She gave me a look that was half irritation and half exhausted amusement. The turkey lay wrapped in plastic in the cooler, its pale legs pointed upward like it had surrendered. Mom touched my elbow. Taste the gravy. I'm not cooking. Tasting isn't cooking. It's quality control. You always taste it. Celeste turned from the sink. She said she isn't cooking. Mom looked wounded. I asked for an opinion. The defense came so quickly from Celeste that both of us noticed it. She looked back at the turkey. I dipped a spoon into the gravy. It needs salt. Mom handed me the salt shaker. I set it beside her. Then add salt. She did. That was the pattern for the afternoon. Mom asked me how long potatoes took, where Dad kept the carving knife, whether the rolls could share an oven rack with the stuffing. I answered what I knew, but kept my hands to myself. It was harder than doing everything. Celeste overcooked the green beans and undercooked the first batch of rolls. She burned her wrist on the oven rack, swore loudly, and refused Mom's suggestion that she run butter over it. Cold water, I said. I know. She ran cold water over it. At 3:15, Mom announced the turkey would never be ready by 4. Laura poured herself wine. Then we'll eat at 5. The invitation said 4. We all saw it. None of us signed a contract. At 5:20, the turkey emerged brown, enormous, and cooked all the way through. Celeste stared at it like she had personally negotiated its surrender. "Looks good," I said. She looked at me. "It does, doesn't it?" Mom inserted the carving fork. "Your father always made the first cut." "Daniel also owned 3 electric knives because he couldn't remember buying them," Laura said. "We'll survive." Celeste carved badly at first. Her slices were thick on one end and translucent on the other. I nearly reached for the knife. Then Frank said, "Give it a little angle," and showed her with 2 fingers. She adjusted. The next slice came off clean. No one died because I stayed seated. Dinner was good. Not perfect. The mashed potatoes had lumps, which Noreen claimed proved they were real. The stuffing was too wet. Laura ate 3 helpings. Mom kept looking at Dad's empty place, though she had removed the chair. Halfway through dessert, Ellen asked about my hand. It healed. "Your mom said you had an accident on the stairs." The table quieted. Mom folded her napkin. Ellen continued, unaware. "She said there was a misunderstanding about your cane." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I said. Across from me, Celeste stopped eating. Ellen glanced at Mom. "I thought it got moved during all the setup." "That's what I thought," Mom said softly. "You knew before setup," I said. Laura put down her fork. Noreen looked at her plate. Ellen's face reddened. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up." "No, you shouldn't be embarrassed." Mom's voice sharpened. "Mara, this isn't the time. You told her something that wasn't true. I told her it was a family matter. You told me it got moved accidentally," Ellen said. Mom looked at Celeste. I reached for my phone. I had not planned to show anyone the clip, but I was suddenly tired of being the only person expected to preserve everyone else's dignity. Before I unlocked the screen, Celeste spoke. I hid it. Mom turned. "Celeste, she's going to show them. I wasn't asking you to. I put Mara's cane behind Dad's workbench because I thought she relied on it too much." Mom knew. The refrigerator hummed in the adjoining kitchen. Frank leaned back slowly. Ellen said, "You hit her cane?" Celeste's chin lifted, defensive even in confession. "Yes." "And then she fell?" "Yes." Mom pushed her plate away. "No one wanted that," Laura said. "That part has been established." "I apologized," Celeste said. "You asked if I would forgive you," I said. "That's not the same thing." Her eyes came to mine. I said I was sorry. "You said the camera made it look calculated." "It was calculated," Frank said. "You put an object in a hidden place." "This doesn't concern you," Mom told him. Frank looked down at his plate. "Then you shouldn't have invited me to dinner." "Despite everything," Laura snorted. Mom stood and gathered 2 dishes, though neither was empty. "I won't have your father's holiday ruined by this." "Dad hated Thanksgiving," I said. Everyone looked at me. He liked leftovers. He complained about the actual day from breakfast until dessert. A reluctant smile pulled at Noreen's mouth. Mom did not smile. She carried the dishes into the kitchen. The conversation moved on because conversations do. Frank told a story about a disastrous camping trip. Ellen asked Laura about a cruise. Celeste cleared plates before anyone finished, then brought coffee without asking who wanted it. At 7, Mom found me putting on my coat. "You're leaving already. We said we'd go after dinner. There are containers in the pantry. I thought you could divide the leftovers. Celeste can. She doesn't know which ones stack. Containers are adventurous. They'll figure it out." Mom looked toward the dining room. "You embarrassed me." I corrected a lie. "In front of everyone." "You told it in front of everyone." Her face tightened. "I'm trying to hold this family together. Then stop using me as the string." I regretted the sentence as soon as I said it. Not because it was false, because it sounded prepared, and the truth between us had never been that tidy. Mom's eyes filled. I kissed her cheek anyway. She turned just enough that my lips caught the edge of her hair. In Laura's car, I stared out the window until my phone buzzed. Celeste had texted, "I shouldn't have let Mom lie to Ellen." I wrote, "No." A minute later, another message arrived. The turkey took 6 hours and Mom criticized my slicing. I looked at the dark houses passing outside. I typed, "Dad criticized mine for 20 years." She sent a single laughing face. It was not forgiveness. It was not even peace. But I saved the message. Christmas passed in shorter visits. I spent morning coffee with Mom, dinner with Laura and Noreen, and no night anywhere. Mom gave me gloves with reinforced palms. I gave her an electric kettle she claimed was too complicated, then used every day. By January, the calls had become less frequent. Celeste learned the name of the plumber and the location of the circuit breaker. Mom learned to order groceries online, though she once ordered 16 lemons instead of 6, and blamed the website. On a wet Thursday afternoon, my phone rang while I was reconciling a client's bank statement. Celeste's name appeared. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. "She fell," Celeste said. Every muscle in my body tightened. "Where?" "In the kitchen. She was standing on a step stool." "Is she hurt?" "She says no, but she can't get up. Did you call an ambulance?" "She won't let me." "Are you there?" "I'm 40 minutes away." So was I. For one terrible second, neither of us said anything. Then Celeste whispered, "Mara, I don't know what to do. You call Frank," I said. "I'll call Mom. What if she doesn't answer? She answered you. She called me." Then the call dropped. Call Frank. What do I tell him? To go next door and check on her. She'll be furious. Celeste. I know. I'm calling. We hung up. I called Mom while I shut down my computer with one hand and reached for my coat with the other. She answered after 6 rings. "You don't need to come," she said. "Are you still on the floor?" "It's a very clean floor." "Mom." "I'm resting." On the floor. My back is against the cabinet. "Can you move your legs?" "I'm not paralyzed." "I didn't ask that." "Yes, I can move my legs. Did you hit your head?" "No." "Are you bleeding?" "No." "What hurts?" "My pride." "Anything attached to your pride?" "My left hip." I tucked the phone between my shoulder and ear and sat to pull on my boots. My fingers were shaking so badly I missed the zipper twice. How bad? It's sore. Sharp, dull, burning. You sound like one of those automated nurses. Answer. Dull. Is your phone charged? It says 31. Stay where you are until Frank gets there. I am not having Frank Reeves find me on the kitchen floor. He once got trapped under Dad's boat trailer. That was different. How? He was outdoors. The doorbell rang through the phone. Mom groaned. You called him. Celeste did. This family has no respect for privacy. Answer the door. I'm on the floor, Mara. Frank has a key. A beat passed. Why does Frank have a key? Because you gave him one after you locked yourself out in September. I did not lock myself out. The door locked before I was ready. I heard a key scrape in the lock, then Frank's voice. Vivian. In the kitchen, Mom called, sounding as dignified as a woman could from beneath a dishwasher. Put Frank on. I can hear you, he said in the distance. Don't try to lift her, I know. Mom said, Everyone stop issuing commands in my house. I'm leaving now, I told her. You don't have to. I know. The words quieted both of us. I drove badly for the first 5 minutes. Too fast, too close to the steering wheel, checking my phone at every red light. Then I heard Adrienne's voice in my head asking about the mechanical part. I slowed down. Celeste called when I was halfway there. Frank says she can stand, but he won't let her. Good, she's furious. Also good. Should we call an ambulance? If she can't put weight on the hip, yes. She says she can. Did she try? Frank won't let her. Then we wait until we're there. I'm 10 minutes away. So am I. You're coming from farther. I left first. She went quiet. Then she said, I was in a meeting. I almost didn't answer. But you did. What if I hadn't? She would have called me. What if neither of us answered? She would have called Frank or Laura or 911, or she would have dragged herself to the phone charger using pure irritation. I'm serious. So am I. Celeste exhaled. I hate this. I knew what she meant. Not the fall. The knowledge that an ordinary afternoon could split open while we were somewhere else. I know, I said. Mom was still on the floor when we arrived, sitting on a folded dish towel Frank had wedged behind her lower back. He had brought a sofa cushion, but she refused to use it because it was decorative. A wooden step stool lay on its side beside the pantry. Celeste reached Mom first and dropped to her knees. "Why were you standing on that?" "I needed the serving platter." "What serving platter?" "The white one. You have 12 white platters. The oval one with the leaves. You could have called me." "To get a platter? You called me because you couldn't get up. That was different." Frank saw me in the doorway and lifted both hands. "She hasn't moved." "Traitor," Mom muttered. I set down my cane and knelt carefully. My body knew the position. One knee angled away, right foot planted, weight through my left hip. I had knelt beside Dad's chair the same way to change the tubing on his oxygen. "Show me where it hurts." Mom pressed the side of her hip. "Any pain in the groin?" "No." "Did you hit the cabinet?" I slid against it. "Can you bend the knee?" She bent it. Celeste watched my hands. "What does that mean?" "It means she can bend her knee." "But is that good?" "It's better than not bending it." Mom looked from one of us to the other. "I would like to get off the floor before you turn this into a seminar. We should have someone check you." Celeste said, "No." "Mom, I am not spending 5 hours in urgent care to be told I'm bruised. You don't know that. I know my own body." The words passed through the room and found me. Mom heard them too. Her face changed. I stood using my cane. "Then you also know whether you can put weight on that hip." "I can. If you can't, we call for help. We don't pull you up. I didn't ask anyone to pull me." "You called Celeste." "I called because the floor was cold." Frank coughed into his hand. Celeste sat back on her heels. "What do we do?" Mom looked at me. I almost answered. I could feel the whole machinery warming up inside me. Organize, assess, decide, reassure. Get the walker from the hall closet. Find her shoes. Call the clinic. Pack a bag in case imaging took hours. Bring crackers because Mom hated vending machines. Text Laura. Move the rug. Check the step stool for a loose hinge. I picked up my cane. "Mom decides whether she wants medical care," I said. "If she tries to stand and can't, you call emergency services." Celeste stared. "That's it?" "That's it. But how should she stand? Frank knows." Frank nodded. Slowly. "I've been standing for 74 years, Mom said. "Then teach us," Laura said from the back door. No one had called her, which meant Frank had. Laura came in wearing slippers and a raincoat over sweatpants. Noreen followed carrying an umbrella. Mom closed her eyes. Wonderful. Sell tickets. With Frank on one side and the kitchen counter on the other, Mom got onto her knees, paused, then brought one foot forward. No one pulled. She pushed through her arms and stood. Her face went white. Celeste grabbed her hand. "Don't," Mom said sharply. Celeste released it. Mom shifted weight onto the left leg and gasped. The room made the decision for her. Urgent care took 2 hours and 20 minutes, not 5. The x-rays showed no fracture. The doctor called it a deep bruise and recommended rest, ice, and a follow-up with her regular physician if the pain did not improve. Mom treated the accuracy of her prediction as a greater victory than the lack of broken bone. "I told you," she said as Celeste helped her into the car. "You said 5 hours, Laura replied. "You were wrong by more than half." That evening, we settled Mom on the couch with an ice pack wrapped in a dish towel. Noreen made scrambled eggs. Frank went home after replacing the step stool in the pantry with a note taped across it that read, "Ask someone." Mom tore off the note. "I'll use my grabber next time." "Your grabber is in the upstairs closet," Celeste said, then put it in the kitchen. Celeste looked at me. I looked back. She carried the grabber downstairs. At 9, I put on my coat. Mom shifted against the couch. "You're leaving?" "Yes." "I thought you might stay." "Celeste's staying." Celeste turned. "I am." "You said you brought an overnight bag. I brought it in case urgent care took longer." Mom touched the ice pack. "You don't both need to stay." "Good," I said. Celeste followed me into the hall. "Can we talk?" "I'm tired. So am I." I waited. She lowered her voice. "I have a presentation tomorrow. Then go home. And leave her alone?" "She has her phone. Frank is 4 houses away. What if she needs the bathroom?" She just walked there. What if she falls again? Then she calls for help. Celeste folded her arms. You would have stayed before. Yes. You keep saying things like that as if I'm stupid for not understanding. You're not stupid. Then help me understand. I looked toward the living room. Mom was complaining that the ice pack had warmed up. Noreen was explaining that ice did that. I stayed because I believed no one else would, I said. That didn't make it healthy. Celeste's eyes went to the floor. I'll stay, she said. You don't have to. I know. The same words I had given Mom. Something moved between us. Not trust. Recognition, maybe. I went home. The next afternoon, I brought soup to Mom's house. Celeste's car was gone. A yellow legal pad lay on the dining table with a list in her handwriting. Pick up prescription, change sheets, call insurance about x-ray, move laundry upstairs, groceries. Underneath, she had written MARA beside 3 items. I crossed out my name. Mom was on the couch wearing lipstick and Dad's cardigan. She accepted the soup as if I were delivering evidence. You didn't have to cook. I know. It smells good. It's from Noreen. She oversalts. She does. Mom ate 2 bowls. We talked about the rain, the bruise, and a documentary she had watched about people who restored old clocks. She told me Celeste snored on the recliner and left every kitchen cabinet open. She was scared, I said. So were you. Yes. Mom moved her spoon through the soup. I'm sorry you had to see me like that. On the floor? Needing things. There's nothing wrong with needing things. Her eyes lifted to mine. I held the look. She set down the spoon. I didn't understand how afraid you were on the stairs. I told you. I know. The room went still. Mom looked toward the window. I thought if you did it once, you'd realize you could. I couldn't. No. You still say that like the result surprised you. It did. That's because you trusted what you wanted to believe more than what I told you. She rubbed one thumb over the edge of the cardigan cuff. I don't know how to answer that. You don't have to answer today. I stayed 1 hour. When I stood, Mom said the upstairs sheets needed changing. She said it lightly as though mentioning weather. Celeste put it on the list, I said. She had to work, so do I. It would take you 10 minutes. No. Mom stared at me. Then she nodded once. Not graciously, not happily, but she nodded. I kissed her forehead and left before guilt could unpack its bags. 3 days later, the phone rang while I was making coffee. Mom said, "The Blue Jay is back." I waited for the request hidden behind it. None came. "He's bullying the Cardinals," she added. "That's what Blue Jays do. Your father never liked them. Dad hated anything with confidence." Mom laughed. We talked for 7 minutes, and she did not ask me to fix a single thing. The Blue Jay became our truce. Mom called when it knocked seed from the feeder, chased a squirrel off the fence, and discovered it could cling sideways to the sweat cage. We discussed the bird with the seriousness of 2 diplomats working through a neutral country. She did not mention the heating bill. I did not ask whether Celeste had changed the sheets. By March, Mom's bruise had faded from black to green to the yellow of old newspaper. She began using the step stool again after Frank removed his warning note, but she called him first to stand in the kitchen and complain while she climbed it. This was not the lesson anyone wanted, but it was a lesson. I drove her to a follow-up appointment because I offered. That distinction mattered so much to me that it felt childish. Before, I would have taken her because she needed a ride, because Celeste had a meeting, because the office parking lot confused Mom, because Dad would have expected it, because saying no required more energy than getting in the car. This time I called on Tuesday and said, "Do you want me to drive you Thursday?" She paused before answering. "Yes, please." No emergency, no test, just a question, with room around it. After the appointment, we went to the grocery store. Mom pushed the cart, though she leaned too heavily on one side and caused it to drift towards cereal displays. I walked beside her. In produce, she picked up a bag of lemons. 16? I asked. I clicked the wrong thing once. 16 times. The website was unclear. She put 4 lemons in the cart. Near the pharmacy, we passed a rack of aluminum canes in black, silver, and a shade of bronze that looked like a motel lamp. Mom slowed. "Your father hated those," she said. "Dad hated this entire store. He hated the lights. He hated music recorded after 1989. She reached toward my cane but stopped before touching it. "He chose that one, didn't he?" "Mostly. I had been discharged from the rehabilitation unit with a plain black cane. Dad said it made me look like I was about to ask people whether they had considered their burial options. He spent 2 afternoons online comparing wooden ones, rejected maple as too cheerful, and ordered walnut without checking with me. When it arrived, the handle was too large for my hand. He sanded it at the kitchen table while wearing his oxygen tubing. Every few minutes, he made me test the grip. He complained the entire time about the manufacturer, shipping, wood varnish, and websites that made you accept cookies. The cane had been in the box beside him when he apologized again for asking me to carry the oxygen cylinder." "It wasn't the cylinder," I said. Mom looked at the cereal shelves. "What?" "My injury. It wasn't the weight." I slipped. "You were carrying it for him." "Yes. I told him not to go outside that day. He didn't." "I did. For him." The cart rolled slightly. Mom caught it. "He blamed himself," she said. "I know, so did I. That stopped me." She took a box of Dad's cereal from the shelf, read the label, and put it back. "I used to look at that cane and think about the stairs," she said. "The back stairs, not the ones. I know which ones. I hated it. I noticed. I thought you hated it too. I hate needing it. I don't hate it." Mom's fingers tightened on the cart handle. "I should never have let Celeste take it. No. I thought I was helping you get rid of something you hated. You were helping yourself not see it." The words came out before I decided whether to say them. Mom did not argue. We stood beneath a speaker playing an upbeat song about summer while an employee stacked soup cans 20 feet away. Real reckoning, it turned out, did not wait for flattering lighting either. Finally, Mom said, "That may be true." It was the closest she had come to saying I was right without making my correctness sound like an unfortunate symptom. She did not apologize. I wanted her to. I also understood that if I reached for the apology, I would help her build it, put the words in order, and thank her when she repeated them. So I moved on. "Do you need cereal?" "No." "You put it on the list. That was your father's cereal. Dad hasn't eaten breakfast in almost 3 years. She glared at me. Then she put a different box in the cart. Celeste and I spoke mostly through practical messages. Mom's plumber recommends someone for gutters. Laura's birthday dinner is at 6. "Do you have Frank's bourbon cake recipe?" I did not. Frank did not either. He claimed the recipe came to him in a dream. In May, Celeste texted a photograph of the bathroom faucet she had replaced herself. It leaned slightly to the right. I wrote, "Looks good." She wrote, "It is crooked." I wrote, "It has personality." She sent back, "I hate you." It was almost affectionate. At Mom's birthday dinner, Celeste brought a lemon cake and did not ask me to decorate it. She arrived early, moved Dad's extra chair from the dining room before Mom saw it, and remembered to bring candles. One of them broke, so the cake said 7 instead of 75. "Close enough," Laura said. Emotionally, she's 7. Mom blew out the single candle and called Laura a jackass. I stayed through coffee. When dishes began migrating toward the kitchen, I carried my plate to the counter and left it there. No one looked surprised. The change felt less like a victory than a room settling after someone stopped slamming doors. In July, Celeste asked for the external drive again, not by leaving it on my porch. She called. I learned how to edit. "You did? There are tutorials. I've heard rumors. I want to finish the anniversary video. Mom still wants it?" She says she doesn't care now, which means she asks about it once a week. I opened the drawer where I had put the drive. "What are you planning to make?" "Something less embarrassing." "For whom?" "For Dad." "That isn't an answer." She sighed. I watched the footage. How? I had a copy on my laptop. Of course she did. The drive on my porch had not been her only copy. She had wanted me to perform the work, not safeguard the files. "My speech was awful," she said. It had complete sentences. Frank called Dad a steady light for 6 months after he bought a flashlight that kept turning on in his pocket. I laughed before I could stop myself. Celeste continued, I want to use the real stories. The raccoon, the flat tire. You talking about the cards? You stopped recording Frank. The audio kept running. I pictured her seated at a desk, learning to separate sound from image, listening to everyone contradict the stories she had prepared. What do you need from me? The Christmas tape. Just the section Mom played. I considered it. You can come copy it. The original stays here. Okay. And I'm not editing. I know. She came the following Saturday with her laptop, 2 cables, and grocery store coffee. Mine was black. Hers contained enough milk to qualify as chowder. We set up the reel-to-reel player at my dining table. I threaded the tape while she connected a small audio interface. Dad's voice filled the room, complaining that Mom had pressed the wrong button. Celeste smiled. He sounded so young. He was 51. That sounds young now. We copied the section. The process took 20 minutes. Celeste stayed for 2 hours. At first, we discussed sound levels and file formats neither of us truly understood. Then she walked through my living room and stopped at the photograph of Dad and me, taken 6 weeks after my injury. I was seated in his recliner, and he stood beside me with one hand on my shoulder. The walnut cane leaned against the chair. I hated that picture, she said. Your hair looked fine. I'm not in it. That was the joke. She turned toward me. Can we talk? You've been talking. You know what I mean. I sat at the dining table. She sat across from me. For several seconds, she peeled the paper sleeve from her coffee cup in narrow strips. I'm sorry you fell, she said. I looked at her. Her shoulders sank. That's wrong. It's incomplete. I'm sorry I made you fall. You didn't push me. I took the thing that kept you from falling. Yes. She nodded, staring at the paper strips. I thought you were exaggerating how much you needed it. I know. I thought if you walked without it, Mom would calm down. Mom wasn't upset by the cane until you made it a problem. That isn't true. She talked about it all the time. To you? She said you were getting more dependent. She said you brought it even on good days. Good days can turn into bad days in a parking lot. I know that now. You knew it then. You just didn't believe me. She rubbed one thumb across the lid of her cup. No, I didn't. The admission sat between us. Why? I asked. She glanced toward the photograph, because it made everything visible. What did? The cane. Your injury. Dad being sick. You being there. I stayed quiet. Celeste's voice thinned. Every time I came home, there was some new piece of equipment. The oxygen concentrator, the shower chair, that rail by his bed. Then your cane. You had all these stories I wasn't part of, and Mom knew which nurse you liked, and Dad had inside jokes with you about his medication. You could have visited. I know, you were invited. I know. What do you want me to say? Nothing. She pushed the coffee away. I would come in and see you using that cane, and it felt like you were carrying proof. You got hurt helping him. I stayed away because I couldn't stand watching him get worse. Then I showed up after he died and gave speeches about being present. The speech was your idea. Yes. The camera was your idea. Yes. And the cane caught the light. Her eyes filled. It didn't match what I wanted people to see. There it was. Not concern, not fear, not tough love. Composition. You wanted me to walk into the frame without it, I said. I wanted you to look strong. I was strong, I know. No, you wanted me to look uninjured. She wiped beneath one eye. Yes. I expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired enough to lie down on the floor. Celeste looked at the walnut shaft beside my chair. I'm ashamed, she said. That doesn't help me. I know. It doesn't fix my hand or the stairs or the fact that every time my leg gives now, I hear you telling me I rely on it too much. Her face folded. I did not rescue her from that either. After a while, she gathered the paper strips into her palm. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. That's better. She gave a broken little laugh. At the door, she paused. I'm going to finish the video. Okay. I took my speech out. That'll help the running time. This time we both laughed. She left with the copied audio and her crooked faucet waiting at home. I stood on the porch, leaning on the railing Dad installed, until her car disappeared. In October, Mom called during the Blue Jays' afternoon visit. She spoke about the feeder, the weather, and the leaves clogging her gutters. She did not ask me to call anyone. Then she said, "Your father's anniversary is next month. I know. I want you there this year." I watched a red leaf slide across my front walk. "As what?" I asked. Mom was quiet long enough that I checked whether the call had dropped. "As my daughter," she said. "That sounds nice. It's what you are. It hasn't always been the job I was doing." A branch scraped against my kitchen window. On her end, I heard the soft rattle of birdseed hitting the feeder tray. "What do you want me to say?" she asked. "What are you asking me to do? Come to dinner? Only dinner? And the remembrance. Am I shopping? No. Cooking? No. Setting up chairs, choosing photographs, confirming who's coming, fixing the tape player, or cleaning afterward?" Her voice tightened. I said no. You said no to cooking. Well, no to all of it. I let the answer sit. Mom exhaled. "You're making this sound like a business contract. I'm trying to understand the invitation. You used to understand invitations. I used to find assignments hidden inside them. That isn't fair. It's accurate." She said nothing. I pictured her beside the kitchen window, one hand holding the phone, the other resting on the counter where the blue jay scattered seed. I missed her. Not an old version of her or the mother I wished she had been. Her. Defensive, funny, impossible, 80% cardigan. "I want to come," I said. "Then come. I'll bring one tape." Her voice changed. "Which one?" "I don't know yet. We could use the Christmas tape again. We could. Everyone liked it. Dad swore in the first 10 seconds. That's why they liked it. We agreed on 3 o'clock. Dinner at 5:30. The remembrance at 6:20. Mom said there would be no camera this year." "The camera wasn't the problem," I said. "I don't want it blinking at you." "It blinked for me." She did not answer that. 2 days later, Celeste sent the finished memorial video. Her message said, "Watch whenever." No deadline, no notes needed. I waited until Saturday morning, made coffee, and opened the file on my laptop. The first image was not Dad's portrait. It was his hands, enlarged from a photograph of him repairing Mom's kitchen timer. His nails were dirty. A Band-Aid wrapped one knuckle. Over the picture, Frank's voice said, "One time, Daniel and I found a raccoon in his garage." The video cut to Frank under the ring light. He described opening a cabinet and seeing 2 bright eyes staring back from a shelf of paint cans. Dad had tried to lure the raccoon out with ham. Frank objected because it was good ham. They argued until the raccoon climbed down on its own, took the ham, and left through the open garage door. At the end, Frank said, "Daniel told everyone he got it out. The raccoon had the most success of anybody involved." Celeste left in his laugh. Ellen told the full story about the flat tire and the empty gas tank. Noreen described the hinge. Laura talked about Dad showing up at her house with a toolbox after being specifically forbidden to fix anything and then spending 3 hours pretending he had come only for coffee. Mom appeared several times, not seated beneath the ring light, but moving through the dining room. She touched Dad's pipe. She straightened his union pin. She stood alone beside his chair when she thought everyone was eating. Celeste had used her own speech only once. A 3-second clip of her taking a breath before she began, then a cut to an old photograph of Dad asleep on the couch with his mouth open. I laughed into my coffee. Near the end, my voice said, "He cheated at cards." The video showed the photograph of Dad standing beside me after my injury. The walnut cane was clearly visible against his chair. Celeste did not crop it out. Dad's marked ace appeared last. The tiny pencil dot in the corner enlarged until it nearly filled the screen. Then the picture faded. No steady light, no legacy, no declaration of what family meant. Just Dad's irritated voice from the Christmas tape saying, "Are we done with this thing?" I watched the video twice. Then I texted Celeste. "It sounds like him." She replied 10 minutes later. That's what I wanted. I typed, no, it wasn't. 3 dots moved. Then, it is now. I closed the laptop. The boxes of tapes occupied the lower shelves in my living room. Dad had labeled some in careful block letters and others with descriptions that made sense only to him. Birds except crows. Laura arguing, good. Baseball, don't erase, even though he had recorded over half of it with lawnmower noises. During his last year, I added dates in black marker. The labels from those months were practical. Medication notes, mom's birthday, testing microphone, Daniel after lunch. I spent several evenings listening. Most of the recordings were too ordinary for a memorial. Dad coughing, the television, me reading labels from pill bottles while he insisted the generic names sounded like failed European car companies. On one tape, we spent 11 minutes trying to identify a noise that turned out to be the reel itself rubbing against the machine. I found his warning on a tape labeled July, sort later. His voice came first. Is that moving? I answered from farther away. Yes. Are you recording? Yes. Why? Because you told me to test it. That doesn't sound like me. It's literally on tape. A chair scraped. Dad coughed for a long time. I heard the concentrator increase, followed by my footsteps. I'm fine, he said. You're blue. I've always been cool-toned. Put the cannula back. A pause. Then Dad said, bossy. Alive. That too. I sat on the floor beside the player, listening to myself move around his room. A cabinet opened. Water poured. He complained that the glass was too full. I told him drinking half would solve the problem. The voices were ours, but they belonged to people I could no longer enter. After several minutes, Dad said, how's the leg? Fine. That means bad. It means I don't want to talk about it. That's what bad means. I heard myself sit. It's worse when it rains, I said. I shouldn't have asked you to take that cylinder out. We've had this conversation. I want to have it again. I slipped. You didn't push me. I asked because I knew you'd do it. The room on the tape went quiet. Dad continued, his breathing audible between words. I asked you for everything because you always said yes. You needed help. Everybody needs help. There wasn't anybody else. There's your mother. She was helping you shower. Celeste. She was in Richmond. She's always in Richmond when something weighs more than a purse. Dad. It's true. I smiled despite myself. Then his voice softened. You made it easy for all of us to decide you were the best person. I was the best person. That isn't the same as being the only person. The sentence was Laura's too, or Laura's had been his. In our family, even wisdom got handed down as a used object. On the tape, I said, what was I supposed to do? Let the oxygen sit outside? No. Then what? Ask someone else before you break yourself. I did ask. Ask louder. That's terrible advice. I'm not finished. You usually aren't. He laughed, then coughed again. Mara, he said when he caught his breath. Being needed can make you feel loved. It isn't always love. I stopped breathing. You think I don't know that? My recorded voice asked. I think you know it and keep doing the job anyway. Somebody has to. That's the line. Your mother uses it. Celeste uses it. I use it. And you hand us whatever we're asking for. I don't know how not to. Learn. The word came through the speaker gently. You're reliable, Dad said. That's a good thing. Don't let us turn it into a life sentence. On the floor of my living room, I pressed my bandaged hand against my mouth before remembering it had healed months ago. The recording continued. I changed the subject to dinner. Dad thanked me for the water, for the tapes, for all of it. I told him not to get sentimental because I had to leave in 20 minutes. He said, You're a good daughter. I answered, I'm aware. His laugh was low and tired. Then the tape ran out. I did not immediately decide to play it at the anniversary. For several days, I argued with a man who had been dead almost 3 years. It was easy for Dad to warn me after benefiting from every yes. Easy for him to become wise when he no longer had to ask who would bring in the oxygen. He had seen the pattern and still participated in it. He loved me and used me. Both were true. Playing the tape could become another way to make him the final authority in a family where his empty chair already won every argument. I called Laura. "Would you play it?" I asked after she listened. "No." "Why not?" "Because Daniel told me never to answer theoretical questions." Laura. "I'm not you. What if Mom hears it as an attack?" "She might." "What if Celeste thinks I'm trying to punish her?" "She might." "You're very helpful." I microwaved tea. I leaned back in my chair. Laura said, "Why do you want to play it?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. I want them to hear that I didn't invent this after the cane. That's one reason. I want Mom to hear him admit it. That's another. I miss his voice. There. That doesn't cancel the other reasons." "No." I turned the empty coffee mug in my hands. Laura said, "You're allowed to bring a complicated memory to a complicated man's anniversary." That was not permission, though it felt like some. The family group text came alive the week before the dinner. Mom wanted pot roast again. Celeste said she would cook it. Mom asked whether I remembered the oven temperature. I wrote, "The recipe is taped inside the spice cabinet." She found it. Celeste asked which pearl onions to buy. I wrote, "The ones that look least depressing." Mom sent, "Very funny." On the morning of the anniversary, Celeste called. "One burner won't light. Use another burner. I'm making 4 things. Use the grill. It's raining. So was Dad's funeral. That's a disturbing comparison." "You asked." She laughed. "I figured it out. The cap was crooked." "Good." After we hung up, I packed the July tape in a hard plastic case and placed it in my bag. I changed sweaters 3 times, then chose the first one. Dark blue, soft at the neck, no concern for how walnut caught the light. When I pulled into Mom's driveway, Celeste's car was already there. Frank's was not. Laura and Noreen would come later. The camera above the mudroom door was dark. Mom opened the front door before I reached the porch. She wore Dad's green cardigan over a black dress and held a wooden spoon. "You're early," she said. "It's 3. "Oh." Her gaze moved to my cane, then to the bag on my shoulder. "Is that the tape?" "One of them." She stepped aside. The house smelled like rosemary, onions, and roast beef. From the kitchen, Celeste called, "Don't take off your coat unless you're staying." Mom rolled her eyes. I crossed the threshold with my cane, striking the floor in plain, steady beats. No one asked me to carry anything. I hung my coat on the peg beside Dad's raincoat. His had not moved in a year. Mom must have stopped wearing it after the fall. The sleeves hung empty, one cuff folded inward. Celeste stood at the stove stirring gravy with a concentration usually reserved for bomb disposal. She wore an apron printed with little red lobsters. Dad bought it for her after she boiled lobsters once, cried when they moved, and ordered pizza. "You found the recipe," I said. "I found 3 recipes. Mom combined them." "I improved them," Mom called from the dining room. "You wrote some wine as a measurement. You measure with your heart. You don't even drink wine. I know what it looks like." Celeste held out the spoon. "Taste this." I looked at it. "Sorry." She pulled it back. "Reflex. I can taste it." "You don't have to. I know." That distinction again. I tasted the gravy. It was too thin and had enough rosemary to qualify as landscaping. "It's good," I said. Celeste's eyebrow line appeared. "You're lying." "It's almost good. What's wrong?" "Too much rosemary." "Mom." "It said 2 sprigs," Mom called. "You used half the package." They were small sprigs. Celeste looked at me. "How do I fix it?" I pointed to the refrigerator. "There's beef stock on the top shelf. Reduce some in another pan. Strain this. Combine them." She waited. "That was the whole answer," I said. "I thought you might do it. I know." She opened the refrigerator. I sat at the kitchen table and watched my sister fix gravy. It took 3 pans, 1 sieve, and a disagreement with Mom about whether a colander counted as a sieve. The result was good. Not almost good. Actually good. Celeste tasted it and smiled before catching herself. "Don't be modest," I said. "It's unattractive on you." She pointed the spoon at me. "You can still leave. I was told not to take off my coat unless I was staying. I didn't think you'd listen. Mom came in carrying a stack of folded napkins. I don't understand why you two only enjoy each other when you're being rude." "It's our love language," Celeste said. "Don't call it that." "See?" I said. "She's fluent." Mom shook her head, but the corner of her mouth moved. The dining table looked different from the year before. Dad's belongings were not spread across it like museum pieces. His union pin rested beside his plate. The world's okayest father mug held a bunch of supermarket daisies. The repaired photograph from the picnic stood on the sideboard in a plain wooden frame, the crack in one corner still visible beneath the glass. No blank space waited for the blue album. At 4, Laura and Noreen arrived with potatoes, even though Mom had specifically told them there were enough potatoes. Laura wore red lipstick and a gray suit with the white sneakers. "You look like you're auditing a basketball team," I said. She kissed my cheek. "And you look nosy." Noreen carried the casserole to the kitchen and asked Celeste where she wanted it. For years, people had directed that question to me in Mom's house. Celeste glanced at the counters, thought for a second, and said, "On the warming tray in the dining room." Nothing fell from the sky. Frank came with bourbon and no serving dish. Ellen brought green beans and apologized because she had forgotten she brought green beans the previous year, too. "They're traditional now," Mom said. The house filled slowly with no ring light in the den and no microphone clipped to a lamp. People took their own coats to the mudroom. They poured drinks without asking me where glasses were. When Frank wanted ice, he opened the freezer and found it through direct observation. The camera above the mudroom door remained dark. I touched the tape case inside my bag twice. Celeste noticed the second time. "You don't have to play it," she said quietly. "I know. What is it?" "Dad and me." "That narrows it down. It's from his last year." She looked toward Mom, who was arguing with Laura about the correct temperature for warming potatoes. "Is it bad?" "No." "Will Mom think it's bad?" "Probably." Celeste nodded. She did not ask me to protect her. Before dinner, she showed the video. She connected her laptop to the television without asking me which cable to use. It took her 2 attempts. On the first, the television displayed her desktop, including a folder labeled Mom Tech Support. I said nothing. On the second, Dad's hands appeared on the screen. Frank watched his raccoon story with a solemn expression, then objected to his own description. That wasn't a cabinet. It was shelving. "You said cabinet," Celeste told him. "I was under pressure. No one pressured you." There was a light in my eyes. Laura's story made Mom laugh. Ellen covered her face when the video reached the empty gas tank, then admitted she still checked her fuel gauge every time she passed Dad's old exit. When Mom appeared moving through the dining room alone, she went still. On the screen, she touched the union pin and then looked toward the doorway, waiting for someone who did not enter. "You filmed me," she said. "I forgot the camera was running," Celeste answered. Mom glanced at me. Evidence could humiliate. It could also hold a moment no one knew needed holding. The photograph of Dad and me appeared near the end. The cane leaned against his chair, polished walnut bright in the afternoon sun. Celeste did not look away from it. Mom did. When my recorded voice announced that Dad cheated at cards, everyone laughed except Mom. "He did not mark the kings," she said. I took the old deck from my bag. Upper left corner. She examined 3 kings, found the pencil dots, and sat down. I was married to a criminal. Frank lifted his bourbon. A very small criminal. Dad's voice asked whether we were done with this thing, and the screen faded to black. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Mom said, "That was him." Celeste closed the laptop. "Yes," she said. Mom reached across the table and squeezed her hand once. Dinner was served at 5:42. Celeste carved the roast in even slices. The potatoes were crisp, the carrots were not burned, and the pearl onions looked exactly as depressing as pearl onions always looked. Mom praised the gravy twice. The second time, Celeste said, Mara told me how to fix it. Mom looked at me. I gave directions, I said. She fixed it, Celeste added. Mom nodded. Then it's Celeste's gravy. My sister bent over her plate, but I saw the smile. There was no empty chair at the table. Mom had put Dad's union pin on the folded napkin where he used to sit, then pushed the chair against the wall. His absence remained, but no one had to navigate around a piece of furniture pretending it was him. At 6:15, we moved into the den. Mom did not arrange us. Laura took Dad's chair before noticing what she had done, started to stand, then sat back down when Mom waved her off. He complained about everyone sitting in it, Mom said. Now he can't. Frank poured bourbon into the proper glasses this year. At 6:20, the mantel clock chimed once, because its mechanism had been broken since 2004. Dad refused to repair it on the grounds that one chime was plenty of information. Mom looked around. I didn't plan anything to say, she admitted. Laura put a hand over her heart. The Lord provides. Oh, shut up. We laughed, and the minute passed without becoming sacred. Then Ellen remembered Dad taking her to an antique market and bargaining a vendor down by $12, only to spend $15 on lunch. Frank told a story about Dad lying under a sink and refusing to come out until Mom admitted he had been right about the pipe. When it was Celeste's turn, she held her empty glass in both hands. I came to see Dad one Tuesday, she said, near the end. I looked at her. It wasn't one of the times everyone knew about. I had a client meeting in town and I stopped in for 20 minutes. Mom's brow furrowed. I must have been at the pharmacy. You were. Celeste looked at the glass. He was in the den with the television on. He didn't want me to call anybody. He said if I called Mara, she'd come over and start checking his oxygen. That sounds right, I said. Celeste smiled slightly. He asked me to make soup. I heated the one in the refrigerator. You made that? Mom said. I thought Mara did. No, Mara's probably tasted good. I remembered the container. 2 spoonfuls left beneath plastic wrap. Dad had told me he was saving it. He said mine tasted like hot lawn water, Celeste continued. Then he ate 2 bowls. Laura laughed. Celeste's voice changed. I told him I had to leave before traffic. He said I always had one eye on the door. I got mad. I said Mara was always watching the clock and nobody accused her of wanting to leave. My chest tightened. He said, Mara watches the clock because I have pills. You watch the door because you're scared. The room went quiet. I asked what I was scared of. He said, me looking like this. Celeste wiped one palm against her skirt. He was right. I stayed until he fell asleep. I didn't do anything. I just sat there. When he woke up, he asked why I was still in his house. Her laugh broke in the middle. I told him traffic. Mom covered her mouth. Celeste looked at me. That's my real memory. Not polished, not flattering, not a story that made her grief graceful. I nodded. Thank you, I said. She looked down. I took the tape case from my bag. This one is complicated, I said. Dad knew the recorder was running. It isn't a secret confession, and I'm not playing it because I think he gets the last word. Mom's fingers tightened around the union pin. What is it? She asked. He and I were sorting tapes. We talked about my leg. And about us. Us? Mom said. All of us. I threaded the reel. I had cued it past the first section. The machine began with a rush of soft static, followed by Dad asking how my leg was. My recorded voice said, Fine. Dad answered, That means bad. The room listened. He apologized for asking me to carry the oxygen cylinder. I told him I slipped. He said he asked because he knew I would do it. Mom lowered her head. On the tape, I said there had been no one else. Dad named Mom. I said she was helping him shower. He named Celeste. I said she was in Richmond. When he made the comment about Celeste being in Richmond whenever something weighed more than a purse, Laura gave a startled laugh. Celeste closed her eyes but did not move. Then Dad's voice filled the room, thinner than I remembered and more alive than anything else in it. You made it easy for all of us to decide you were the best person. I answered, I was the best person. That isn't the same as being the only person. Laura looked at me. Mom looked at Laura. The tape turned. Being needed can make you feel loved, Dad said. It isn't always love. I heard my younger self tell him I knew that. I think you know it and keep doing the job anyway. Somebody has to. That's the line. Your mother uses it. Celeste uses it. I use it. And you hand us whatever we're asking for. No one in the den breathed loudly enough to hear. I don't know how not to, my voice said. Learn. The reel clicked softly. You're reliable. That's a good thing. Don't let us turn it into a life sentence. I let the rest play. Dad thanked me for the water, the recordings, and all of it. He called me a good daughter. I told him I was aware. His laugh reached the room. Then the tape ended. The empty reel kept spinning until I pressed stop. Celeste spoke first. He wasn't exactly innocent. No, I said. Mom rubbed the union pin between her fingers. He made it sound like I did nothing. He said you were helping him shower. I mean, generally. I didn't play it to put Dad on my side. What side did you play it for? The part of the family where we tell the truth. Mom stood. For a second, I thought she was leaving. Instead, she walked to the dining room and returned with the repaired picnic photograph. She placed it on the coffee table. I saw you on the stairs, she said. No one moved, not only after you fell, before. I knew your leg was shaking. Celeste looked at her. Mom kept her eyes on me. I let you keep going because stopping you would have meant admitting I knew better before you started. The words did not sound practiced. They sounded dragged. Laura rose from Dad's chair. Maybe we should go. Mom shook her head. No, I have more to say. Then say it tomorrow without an audience, Laura replied. People gathered coats quietly. Frank squeezed my shoulder. Ellen hugged Celeste, then Mom. Noreen wrapped the leftover potatoes without asking where the containers were. At the door, Laura asked if I wanted a ride. I drove. That wasn't the question. I'm staying 5 minutes. She nodded. 5 can become 10. Don't let it become cleanup. I won't. Celeste carried glasses to the kitchen, stopped, and set them back on the dining table. Mom waited until the front door closed. Dirty plates covered the table. The roasting pan soaked in the sink. Chairs stood at odd angles, and crumbs marked every place where someone had been. I sat with my cane beside my knee. Celeste sat across from me. Mom remained standing between us, holding the photograph of the 3 of us with Dad. For once, the dirty plates waited while my mother tried to find the words. Mom set the photograph on the table. I've tried to apologize to you, she said. No, you've tried to explain. I know. Her answer came without defense. That made me more cautious, not less. She sat at the head of the table, leaving Dad's old place empty. Celeste folded her hands in front of her. Neither woman looked toward the kitchen, though water from the soaking pan dripped steadily against the sink. Mom touched the corner of the repaired frame. Every apology I practiced had a but in it, she said. I was worried about you, but I thought you were becoming afraid, but... Celeste started it, but... Your father had just died, but... He'd been dead 2 years. I know. Grief doesn't keep a calendar. That sounds like another but. She nodded. It does. Celeste shifted in her chair. Mom looked at my cane. Her gaze followed the walnut shaft from the rubber tip to the handle Dad had sanded for my hand. I hated seeing it, she said. We covered that in cereal. I didn't tell you all of it. I waited. When you came into the house with that cane, I saw the back steps. I saw Daniel on the ground beside you trying to take off his oxygen mask because he thought giving it to you would somehow help. I saw the ambulance. I saw you in the hospital telling him it wasn't his fault. She rubbed her palms together. You made it easier for him. He was dying, and you were hurt. He knew that. I didn't. Yes, you did. Mom's eyes lifted. You knew I was hurt. I said. You didn't know what to do with it. She absorbed that without flinching. No, she said, I didn't. Celeste looked at her. You told me Mara liked being needed. Mom's mouth tightened. I said she was good in a crisis. You said she got something out of it? I probably did. You definitely did. Celeste, you don't get to put this entirely on me. I'm not. It was the old beginning, each woman reaching for the cleaner end of a dirty thing. I picked up my cane. Both stopped talking. I'm not staying for you to divide the blame, I said. I hid it, Celeste said. Mom let me. We both lied. We both watched you go upstairs. Mom looked down. Celeste continued. And I wanted the cane out of the video because it made me feel guilty. None of that is Mom's part. No, Mom said quietly. My part came after. She looked at me again. I could have brought it back before you woke up. I could have brought it back when you asked where it was. I could have told Celeste to get the album. I could have stopped you at the first stair. At any stair, I said. Yes. You saw my leg shaking. Yes. And you still let me carry the album. Yes. The word barely reached the other side of the table. Why? Mom's face crumpled, but she kept speaking. Because by then, stopping you would have meant admitting I knew where the cane was. I thought you would make it upstairs. I thought Celeste would help you down. Then when you fell, I looked at the picture before I looked at you. My bandaged hand seemed to pulse in memory. I remember. So do I. You told everyone I misplaced it. Yes. You were going to let me leave, believing maybe I had. Mom shook her head. No. How far were you willing to take the lie? I don't know. That's the answer that scares me. She pressed one hand flat against the table. I called it tough love because that made what I did sound useful. It wasn't useful. It was cruel. Celeste's eyes filled. Mom took a breath. I am sorry I helped take away something you need. I am sorry I watched you struggle and decided my intentions mattered more than what you told me. I am sorry I lied afterward because I was ashamed. And I am sorry this did not begin with the cane. The room went quiet. She had found the sentence underneath all the others. I looked at Dad's union pin beside her hand. For years, our family had treated love like seniority. The person who had sacrificed longest got first claim on everyone else. What did it begin with? I asked. Mom gave a small, helpless shake of her head. Me asking because you would do it. Dad's words, but her voice. Calling you dependable when I meant available. Letting Celeste leave because I knew you'd stay. Thanking you in private and telling everyone else we all got through it together. Celeste stared at the table. Mom looked at her. I protected you from feeling guilty. You protected yourself too, Celeste said. Yes. There was no fight in the answer. Celeste turned to me. I'm sorry I hid your cane. She paused, then corrected herself. I'm sorry I decided I knew your body better than you did. I'm sorry I used Mom's worry to make something I wanted sound caring. I wanted a picture where our family looked whole, and your cane showed that you paid for being there when I wasn't. Her tears spilled now. She wiped them away with the heel of her hand, ruining the beautiful version. You should never have had to prove you needed it. I should have believed you because you said you did. I leaned back. That's the apology, I said. Celeste nodded. I don't know if I can trust you around the next thing you think makes me look wrong. I know. You keep saying that. I'm trying not to ask you to make me feel better. That's new. It's awful. A laugh escaped me. Celeste laughed too, wet and brief. Mom did not. I would like to make this right, she said. You can't make the fall not happen. I know. You can't apologize your way back into the old arrangement. I don't want the old arrangement. You might when the faucet leaks. Her mouth moved reluctantly. I'll call the plumber and complain about his price. That's my right. It is. She folded and unfolded the edge of her napkin. What does this look like now? She asked. The question sounded sincere. It also sounded like a request for instructions, and all three of us heard it. Celeste said, Don't look at Mara. I wasn't. You were. Mom sighed. Fine. You answer. Celeste blinked. Me? You seem to know. I know one thing. When you need help, ask both of us. Or Laura, or Frank, or the person whose actual job it is. Frank makes everything take longer. He does, I said. And if someone says no, Celeste continued, you don't call the next person and complain about the first one. Mom looked offended. I don't do that. Celeste and I both stared at her. Not every time, Mom amended. I rested my hand on the cane's handle. I don't need you to stop asking, I said. I need an answer to be allowed. Mom nodded slowly. And I'm not taking the house accounts back. I pay my own heating bill. You do now. The lowercase L was poorly written. It was printed. We'll never agree. No. And the anniversary? What about it? Can we still do this next year, if everyone wants to? As a family, as adults who each bring something and clean something. Mom glanced toward the dining room table. You're leaving, aren't you? Yes. The dishes. She stopped herself. Celeste covered her mouth, but the laugh came through. Mom pointed at her. You're cleaning the roasting pan. I cooked, and I'm 75. You were 74 until May, and still used it every day. I stood. My right leg was tired but steady. The cane tip settled against the floor. Mom rose too. Are you leaving because of what I said? I told Laura 5 minutes. It's been more than 5, I know. I don't want you driving upset. I'm not upset. You look upset. I contain several things. That doesn't sound safe. It's a 43-minute drive if I obey laws. Dad's line moved between us. Mom smiled, then covered it with one hand. Your father could do it in 35, she said. He treated yellow lights as personal challenges. He loved driving. He loved winning at driving. This time, she let me have the distinction. I picked up my bag. Mom took one step toward me, then stopped. May I hug you? I had not known how much I needed her to ask. Yes. She put her arms around me carefully, not avoiding the cane and not pressing too hard. Her cheek rested against my hair. I felt her ribs move as she breathed. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. I counted on that too much. My eyes closed. Yes. She released me before I had to. Celeste stood near the dining room doorway. I'm not asking, she said. You can hug me. Are you sure? No, but come here. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. Celeste hugged the way she did everything emotional, too tightly, then not long enough. When she stepped back, she wiped her face. I really did think you relied on it too much, she said. I know. That was unbelievably arrogant. Yes, I'm trying to be honest. You can be honest in the kitchen. There's a roasting pan waiting. She laughed. Mom walked me to the mudroom. The camera above the door remained dark. I unplugged it, she said. You can plug it back in. I thought you wouldn't want it. It catches the package shelf and other things. The camera didn't hide my cane. Mom looked up at the small black lens. Could you show me how to reconnect it? The old request waited between us. I considered it. Not tonight. She nodded. Another time? Ask me another time. All right. At the bench, I put on my coat. Mom held the scarf she had once mistaken for mine, the gray one, and wrapped it around her own neck. You don't have to text when you get home, she said. I will. You don't have to. I know. Outside, the air had the sharp November smell of wet leaves and chimney smoke. Dad's porch boards held dark patches from the afternoon rain. I gripped both railings as I descended, using the matched one he built first and the mismatched one he added for me. At the bottom, I heard the front door open. Celeste called, Mara. I turned. She stood on the porch holding a foil-covered plate. Leftovers, she said. This is not a task. I'll take them. She came down and handed me the plate without touching my cane. The gravy's mine, she said. I heard. I fixed it. I was there. I just want that noted. Write it in Mom's Christmas card ledger. From inside, Mom shouted, I can hear you. Celeste grinned and went back into the house. I put the leftovers on the passenger seat and slid behind the wheel. Through the dining room window, I could see Mom stacking plates. Celeste carried the roasting pan toward the sink, stopped to argue about something, then carried it anyway. No one looked toward the driveway to see whether I was coming back. I started the engine. My cane rested beside me, the walnut handle fitted to my palm by a man who had loved me, needed me, failed me, and warned me in time for me to learn after he was gone. Behind me, Mom and Celeste cleared the table themselves. I drove home before the dishes were done.